Come on, then start. There you go. Hello, everybody. Good evening. It is Sun and Moon here. So today is the 29th of March 2018. We're waiting for a guest to come on. Don, who was, he's done the Stan Mars experiment. I'm not sure where he is right now. But on the panel so far, we have Astral, who is an Englishman living in Denmark. And the rest of the people are from the UK. We've got Skyfly, we've got Patricia, and we've got levkungfu. So good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Sorry, I had the mic off. Sorry, how are you there?
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
So how's everyone doing then?
I'm all right.
That's super. It's a lovely bank holiday weekend now, isn't it? For us in the UK.
Yeah.
You've
Must admit, I've got a few days off, and I'm kind of looking forward to it, to be honest.
Yeah, we've got Easter Sunday. Sorry, Easter Sunday. Then it's also April Fool's Day and a full moon as well. And it's what's it called? Is it a blue moon? I can't remember. It's the second moon, is it? No, it's the first moon, so it's not a blue moon. Okay, I messed up there. So we've got a new moon, a full moon, Easter Sunday, and 2 bank holidays. What could be better?
And Easter eggs, chocolate.
If you want to waste your money on those, it's hollow.
Yeah, they are. I haven't bought my daughter an Easter egg. I just bought us a big box of Maltesers. You got more Maltesers for your money than an egg in a piece of plastic.
Can I ask you a question about the weather?
Go for it.
Has it been cold in the UK?
Yes.
Days or what?
It's been a
Like,
lot better
free-
Really
compared to last week. It's brightened up, I think, a bit. It's not snowing anyway.
Yeah, I can't speak for the whole
It's
of the
quite-
UK, but in the south of the UK, you know, Portsmouth, where the Isle of Wight is, we had 15 degrees the other day, but I believe the temperatures are dropping over the weekend, which is typical because it's a bank holiday.
Yeah,
it's usually
it's
the case, isn't it? God's law.
Yeah, sod's law. Night. We're all here having a few days off, and we're going to get snow. Is that right? It's forecast for snow.
They did say it's a possibility of it, but I looked at recent forecasts and I can't see it, but that doesn't mean it's correct.
Are you going to be doing any flying then, Skyfly?
I'm possibly Easter Sunday if the weather's nice. Depends on the wind speed. I think the temperature's dropped down to about 7 degrees, but it's I can't remember. Is it northerly wind? So yeah, it will be cold. Yeah. So it depends really on the conditions and that.
Yeah, because I mean, this last few years in March, we've got like temperatures of 20 odd degrees, which we're not going to haven't made this March. Have you noticed that we get a few really hot days in March, and then it gets cold again, but we haven't even had that. You know what was predicted, don't you, everybody? That we're going into a what do you call it, an ice age. It feels like it right now because it just doesn't feel like it's ever going to get warm. 6 months of kind of cold we've had, haven't we, here in the UK?
Yes, I think it's been the coldest year for a long time. I'm not sure what the records say, but so I'm not going to make a quote, but it's been pretty cold. Actually, I was checking my electric bill, and I normally use 9.6 units per day, and it's up to 12.7.
Right.
Electric heating, so I'm not sure what's happened there. Have they changed the tariff? I'm not sure. Anyway, is Donald coming on soon? Is he?
He's supposed to be, but every now and again, people might just forget they've got the link. Obviously, I arranged it with him a few days ago, but again, it might be that it's. I put the time on there and the clocks have gone forward, so maybe he thinks again, like because America went back, the clocks went back 2 weeks before us. Maybe again, there's a bit of confusion there on the times.
Oh, so
But we're here.
sorry,
We're on a hangout. We picked a few subjects before we went online. I'll pick the first one because I'm sure you'll like this one. You said that the Chinese space station is coming down or something, Skyfly?
Yes, it's apparently coming down this month or the beginning of next month. And that's Sunday is next month. I'll probably say it'll probably be April, beginning of April. I don't think it's going to hit anyone. It's going to land in the sea at 43 degrees latitude.
How do they know? They can do that.
That's what they tell us. And I'm only repeating what I've seen. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah. How can they tell though already? Just like, that's amazing. So what does everybody think about that one then? Lev, what do you think of that then?
What did you say, sorry? I missed that thing.
The Chinese space station is coming
yeah, I'm back, yeah.
Earth's atmosphere.
That means we might get something in the sky, you know, like something glistening through the sky kind of thing, like, you know, burning up through the atmosphere, as they'd say it, or whatever. But it don't mean it's a space station, does it?
No,
like we've got a
because it's not.
like orb light phenomena up there kind of thing, like whether it's like they used to say that, you know, you can see satellites on ground, couldn't they? You know what I mean? And they're not really satellites anymore. Besides, they say you tool if you're to see them. So if you can still see them from ground, then, you know, it's contradicting everything there again. And all the other weird phenomena, whether it's Project Bluebeam or whatever they are and stuff like. But and Halley's Comet as well, you know what I mean? Like when that can pass and stuff kind of thing. It's another weird phenomena which I don't understand anymore kind of thing. So I kind of think like if something's coming down, then they've got the excuse that, you know, or it's the Chinese space station or whatever and stuff.
Yeah, I've been looking into it for a long time. I can't remember what it's called. It begins with a T, and it was they called it one because they sent another one up now, apparently. But in reality, it hasn't been manned for years. They say that the International Space Station, the American one, which is part Russian and all that, has to be thrusted out in space further away to keep its speed going, to stop it falling, because technically it's always falling. That's how it flies, so they say. Although it doesn't have thrusters on board, it uses the Soyuz capsule, whatever, which docks with it to give it a thrust when it's there. And I'm thinking, well, if this Chinese space station hasn't had anyone there for years, why is it taking so long to come down?
Yeah, good point.
It seems a bit strange.
Yeah. They can say what they like, can't they?
Yeah, another
They're all
thing.
full of shit. They're all full.
As we're talking about space, I thought it's a bit funny that, you know, like when they sent the Mars rover to the Mars, the rover on Mars, and even that moon buggy on the moon, and Neil Armstrong's famous footprint, it left an impression, didn't it? Like a print in the what would be moist soil or sand. Now that doesn't happen on a planet like Mars or the moon that doesn't have any moisture. It would just be dust, and it would just make a little dimple in the ground, and then it would just fall into itself. So
yeah.
that footprint debunks the whole moon landing on its own. Sorry to go off topic a little bit there, but I just want to get that in there.
That's okay. Plus, if they actually did land on there or any movement on there, there'd be so much dust flying around.
Yeah, but you have to have moisture, Karen, to get a print. Like at the beach, if you're on the dry sand further away,
right? I haven't thought about that.
You don't get a print. But if you're down right near where it's been dampened, now where you've got moisture, you get a print, and you can make like a nice footprint from your shoe or whatever, or your foot even. You can make a print in the sand. But in the dry stuff, it just pushes down, doesn't it? And then makes a little dip with no impression of the actual shoe.
But it's got no gravity up there, supposedly, has it? Does that make a difference?
Well, they have to have gravity to land. Otherwise, there is gravity. There's 1/8 or something gravity, they say.
Yeah, I did watch the... Oh, I forget what his name is now.
1/6, isn't it? 1/6.
Yeah.
1/6, that's it.
Hey, I question, right? I just
Sorry, mate, you broke up.
This moon it's all quite this moon. Apparently, it's all fluffy and dusty, nice fluff dust, right? But if anyone's ever been into a desert, you know these sand dunes. Well, some of those sand dunes slid. You can't move like many grains of sand. It can be so hard packed. I mean, really, when you see like these nice sharp sand dunes in films, Lawrence of Arabia, they're nice, and some of them, yeah, granted, but some of them are rock solid, believe me. And I'm just wise of them as well, rock solid instead of like dusty, fluffy, nice, dusty, fluffy.
Well,
sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. So you're basically saying there's no way you'd see footprints in the whatever it is.
Well, you have to have moisture, and to have moisture, you need water. And they say there's no water on Mars, so it cancels it out.
I'm not hopping for all that with moon bullshit. Anyway, I think it's ridiculous, totally. I mean, look at the thing that they went in. It looks like that this.
Astral, you're breaking up.
It's in burnouts.
It's the CIA. They know we're talking about them, and they don't want everyone else to hear the truth. They're interrupting the conversation.
I did mirror a little video from this guy in Australia, and he's going strafe. Basically, it's just like the capsule coming back was so small, and they had to sit in that for days. I mean, there's nowhere to eat, nowhere to go to the toilet, nowhere to sleep, just sat next to each other for days on end in the same space. It's just impossible. It would never have happened. It's just stupid, isn't it? But we all believed it, didn't we? I mean, I believe, like Lev saying, Haley's comment, I remember being out looking at that thinking, that was there when Jesus was born, because that's what we're told. I don't believe any of those things now. So what else have you found out then, Bri, about the Chinese space station?
That's all I learned about a few months ago, and then I was on another channel. I spoke about it. Of course, now the time's come around where it's supposed to be crashing to Earth. So it's going to be something that's in the news. But obviously, you got that royal baby that might be born on Easter Sunday, which might take out the news, and we won't even hear about that incident happening. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, who's having a baby? I don't even know that. Who's having a baby?
Not Harry, the other one. I can't remember his name. Kate Middleton. Kate Middleton's having the baby. She's come back to me.
What? They're having another one, are they? Oh wow! Yeah. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was announced on the 3rd of September last year. So it's due either April or May, but I think it might come early. Anyway, I never intended to talk about that. Sorry, I go off the track sometimes.
That's okay. Well, I didn't even know that. I just don't really watch the news, only if I'm passing it or something. I just find the news so depressing that I can't watch it.
No, I don't watch television for a long time, but I heard it on the radio. Oh,
okay then. Thanks for that, Bri. I didn't know that. Anyway, it's just a bit of whatever. Yeah. Anyway, we also talked about Astral was talking about the mainstream media and red pilling and all that. So what was that about then, Astral? Astral. We're not doing very well with Astral today. He's got quite a few. He's got a signal problem. Oh, we can. Oh, there's Don. Hey, there's Don.
Do you read over?
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, there we go. I can unmute my.
But the signal is a little bit funny. Don. Flat Earth calling
something that I
Don.
got on. Hear me?
You're breaking up.
Yeah, but you're breaking up rather a lot.
Something going
Astral.
wrong, Mo.
Drop out and come back. You might fix it.
Yeah, drop out and come back,
Oh,
Astral.
let's
See if
all
that
mute.
makes-
Let's all mute. See if that works.
Oh, he's gone. Don, are you there? Don is there, but he's not there. Don. We've had a few problems. Oh, there you go. He's got a problem as well. He can get on, but a couple of people have come on and they've said that they can't hear anything when they come on, and they've had to go and come back.
Yes, them
Yeah.
gremlins again. Sorry, I spoke.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, there's Astral.
Can you hear me?
that's
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, we're not very organised today. Everybody in the chat room.
No.
I mean, I think actually, to be honest, a lot of us are absolutely knackered from our Russian vids hangout, because we talk for quite a few hours. I think I was actually talking to Russian vids for about 6-7 hours, and it went on till about 3. Well, I don't know, it went on more than that actually. So 6 hours so it was about 8-9 hours, and of course I didn't go to bed till about 5-6 o'clock in the morning, and I haven't got over that yet. Sorry, Astral, what were you saying? You're really breaking up, Astral.
Oh, you?
It could be a YouTube thing. Maybe they're trying to censor us.
Yeah. I think it's been
we
all
heard
day.
We heard you say that.
You know, I've been at some.
Well, they're doing a
looking
lot
at
of that at the moment. Everybody's getting strikes and things at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, that's a good
A
point.
lot of trouble with YouTube and other things. A lot of people. It's going out today apparently about a lot of fruits. But,
Astral, you're really breaking up.
Oh, I don't know what to do.
Well, just stay muted for a little bit and then see if it clears itself up. But it's probably the weather and stuff. Oh, he's gone again.
Back.
Hey, musical chairs on the panel today.
Okay, am I coming through okay?
Yeah.
Yay, Don!
Yes,
Hello, my darling. How are you?
doing fine. Let me see if I can turn my video off. I'm on my phone. My internet connection is real bad this week. I'm having trouble with it.
Yeah, Astral's just saying the same about his. So yeah, best to turn your camera off on a day today. Just to introduce Don. Don is American, and he has done quite a lot of the Stan Myers experiment, and he's also flies. He also has a gyro. What is it? Sorry, what's that? What your helicopter thing called? It's called a.
It's called a gyrocopter.
I was going to say that, and then I thought I was going to make a mistake. A gyrocopter, and you're also building your own aeroplane.
Yes. It's a World War II replica, half-scale Corsair.
And have you managed to do any more to it at the moment then?
No, we're just now getting out of our snow winter state here, and it's just been cold and rainy. I'm working on some other things to get ready for the coming weather as soon as it warms up. But I'll be out there probably this coming month. I'll be able to get back out there and get things rolling again, start making more videos.
Yeah, and excuse me. What's the weather like with you then, Don? Is it colder than usual?
Yeah, it's pretty much been below normal temperatures. This whole past month has been below freezing, which is kind of rare for this type of year for us. this time of year, that is. But it's this week it's actually been warm. It's been in 40 degrees, just maybe 10 degrees above freezing for you guys. But today it's just rained all day. It's just cold, miserable rain.
Sounds like the UK.
Yeah, it looks a lot like it. I was watching Globebusters, or listening to those guys last night, watching them, I guess, and Bob was saying, or not Globebusters, Patricia Steer and Mark Sargent, I think, and Bob was in the thing writing comments, and he said it was snowing in Colorado.
Yeah, well, did you hear what the thing was about the eclipse coming in? They reckon that it's the start of an ice age.
Well, I've been following John Casey. He's been researching what he calls a solar minimum, where he says the sun is going into a kind of a hibernation mode, and it's a 206-year cycle. And we've already started into this, and it's not going to stop until we get to like the year 2030 is going to be the bottom of it. And he's saying it's going to be essentially the next mini ice age. And he's calling for all kinds of bad weather for crops, short growing seasons where you're not going to be able to grow anything because it's going to be too cold for the summer months. But John Casey, he wrote a book called Dark Winter I bought, and been following him now for almost 2 years, and he's been spot on. He predicts all these earthquakes that we've been having, the volcanic eruptions. He says they're all a byproduct of this sun going into a hibernation mode.
Great. How does that work when what you're saying is, I saw a few videos on YouTube saying that Greenland, it's the opposite in Greenland. It's much warmer in Greenland. Like they had the warm, they've sort of had a heat wave.
Yeah, he says what happens is the northern hemisphere, the North Pole area, tends to warm up, and then more ice will accumulate in the Antarctica. And it goes back and forth. One gets warmer, one gets colder, and vice versa. But all his predictions have been really coming true. He predicted the minimum sunspots, where NASA and them was predicting a lot of sunspots for a certain period. They go by solar cycles, I guess. And he predicted there would be like 75 or something, and he was spot on. And NASA was predicting like 100 and plus 150 or something, and they were completely way off. So, and he's got a whole team of researchers around the world that work together and compile all this data that's collected through all the temperature readings around the world and stuff, and then they research all that. And then another fellow I listen to on YouTube is the Adapt 2030, and he sees the same thing, but he equates most of it to solar radiation coming in, and the cloud covers creates more clouds, and the clouds keep the sunlight from hitting the earth and causing the warming effect. So he's pretty much right on par with John Casey, and he is now talking with John Casey and following his work as well. So, but they're both saying the exact same thing. We're going into a grand solar minimum event, and it's going to be taking place.
So do you think that that's what they're trying to make then? Because don't you, that there's so many chemtrails up there, and it keeps blocking out the sun, and that will take some of the heat away. I mean, they're talking about global warming in one sense, but in another sense,
right. I think, yeah, they might be trying to do something like that, but I think it's already doing it on its own. The way John Casey talks and the things that's been happening, I think it's already started. It had started before this stuff, but they're still.
So why aren't they talking about that then? Why aren't they talking about what probably could be happening? Why aren't we talking?
Yeah, because it just boils down to money. They want to make money off of this carbon emissions thing. They want to just milk everybody for their money. It all boils down to money, the greed of money. By saying that we're emitting too many carbon emissions, CO2 gases, they want to put a dollar amount on it and collect on that. And if this role reverses and we start going into a cool spell, and it's completely evident that it's happening, then their whole global warming thing is just out the window at that point, and they're not going to be able to make a penny on it.
True. Could I just explain to you that so that you know who's on the hangout. The yin yang sign is Lev Kung Fu. Patricia's got the no compliance cushion. You've got another pilot with you here, which is Skyfly. He has a microlight. And then Astral, who's having internet problems. And you know Astral, he's an Englishman in Denmark. But yeah, 2 pilots here.
Yeah, he was on the last time I was on. Got to talk with him.
I wasn't actually on the channel, Don. I was in the chat. I spoke to you in the chat. Well, I spoke to you via chat.
I think I was.
I can't remember.
I was on one time with you, and we talked just a little bit. I think you might have showed up at a little.
Oh, I think I came on at the last moment, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah, it was towards the end of the hangout. You came on.
I
And,
remember now.
yep.
Oh goodness, that wasn't the day. Poor Don. Don is an absolute gentleman, a nice, kind, caring man who suddenly found himself on our hangout being porn bombed. And I was just so embarrassed. And then we all met up on an after hangout because obviously we didn't go back live after that. And poor Don, who we don't know that well, they're suddenly in all this drama and then of course
I get kicked off like everybody else, and I didn't know what was going on, and I try to get back on, and I go to YouTube and I see the porn bomb on there. I was like, oh man, she got what do you call it, hijacked there, sniped. It's first time.
Now
I was a bit embarrassed because we don't know you that well. And the next thing is you're watching all that so you're caught up in all that. Oh my goodness. Carry on, Brian.
No, I was quite impressed with when you came on the first time, Donald, and I saw your the fact you're building your own plane in that, although you neglected it due to life factors and other stuff, and you're getting back to it, and I was very impressed with that. Obviously, as soon as the weather improves, and you'll get it finished off and get it flying. That's great. But
yeah,
I also asked you about this rumor that's going around on the internet about jet engine aircraft running on compressed air. Now, what's your view on
that?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth with Karen through emails about this, and I was in the Marine Corps back in the 80s, right after I got out of high school, and I was a jet engine mechanic. I worked on C-130s, if you guys are familiar with those.
Yeah.
High wing cargo plane, four turboprop engines. Right. So I was an engine props mechanic. They called us power plants mechanics. So I went to school for jet engines, how they work. So I understand everything there is to know about those type of jet engines and many other styles of jet engines. There's basically 3 types of jet engines out there. You have your typical jet engines like you'd see on a fighter jet that puts out strictly exhaust flow for thrust. And then you have what I worked on, which was a turboprop, where it was just a constant speed jet engine that spun a propeller. And then you get into the turbo shaft models, which are what you would find in helicopters because they use a shaft to spin rotor blades. Turboprops, turbo shafts are pretty much the same kind of things. And then you have what the airliners use is referred to as turbo fans. Right. Again, it's just another jet engine turning a big duck fan unit instead of a propeller or rotor blades on a helicopter.
So do you believe, for one instance, they are running on compressed air? Now, I know that the air is compressed, which goes in, so it's compressed air, but it's not coming from some sort of tank on board the aircraft, is it? They do use fuel.
No. Yeah, my experience with jet engines, that goes back to the 80s of what I've learned and know about them. I still see the jet engines of today being the exact same thing, just more efficient at doing what they do. I don't believe that they're running on compressed air. For one, any kind of engine, there are engines out there that have been designed lately that run on compressed air, but you got to put them in a tank that's capable of withstanding like 4,500 psi of pressure. And the wings of an aircraft being all aluminum or even composites, fiberglass, carbon fiber and the likes, they'll never withstand any kind of pressurization like that. They can hold a lot of volume, maybe for a few psi pounds, but I can't see them holding, hundreds or thousands of psi of air pressure, and then it still wouldn't last that long because the engines are so huge and use it so fast.
Yeah, let's talk about the Airbus 380. Now that is the biggest aircraft in the world. It's humongous. It has 20 main wheels, and each tire is 5 feet tall. There's 20 main wheels on there, and I think I can't remember the numbers now, but it holds an astronomical amount of fuel. But it has 11 tanks in each wing, and it has wings in the tailplane, and the tailplane is bigger than a 747. The actual wing at the back of the plane, which is called a tailplane, is actually bigger than the 747's main wing, and it also has a belly tank. So that's where all the fuel.
Yeah, there's a lot of planes. We had that plane, what was it, back in the 80s or 90s that was leaving the East Coast, headed for, I think, Europe, and it blew up in midair. And some of the conspiracy theories thought that it was possibly the Navy had launched a missile that brought it down, and then they come to the conclusion that it was a short circuit wire in the center fuselage fuel tank. The belly of the plane had a fuel tank in there, and it was basically just fumes and vapor in there, and it had a spark, and that's what blew the plane up. That's the official story. But yeah, there's center tanks on the belly side, basically under where the people sit.
The Alps. Just when it took off from, I can't remember now. It was going over France in the Alps. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, this one was in the United States. It was leaving the east. Yeah, it was leaving. I don't know if it was like John F. Kennedy or something, but it was on the East Coast, flying out over the Atlantic Ocean, headed towards Europe when it exploded shortly after takeoff. That was probably in the late 80s.
So what aircraft was that? Is it a Dash 8 or something?
It was probably like a Boeing, something. It wasn't quite a 747. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, it was a smaller commercial.
Is it 2-engine?
I believe so. Just
737 probably.
Yeah, like a 727 or 707 or something.
Yeah, one of
from the day. Right. But
which is still massive when you stand next to them.
Yeah, they're still a big airplane. Yeah. And I was trying to explain to Karen that airplane. I watched her videos where she's talking about when an aircraft turns, how the fuel would slosh down towards the wingtip, and I said, well, there are generally multiple fuel tanks per wing, and they don't fill all the wings, all the tanks all the time. They only put on enough fuel to get them to where they need to go.
Can I add something to that though? Because I've got just a few questions here actually, and one of them isn't related to what we're talking about the planes today. It's about something else, but. Obviously, on Monday, we had Paul, who was talking on Healing Hands. I don't know if you saw that one. His family run they own a run a petrol station in Spain. And he says that when the lorries come in with just the fuel for cars, they have to be so careful and they're so slow.
Yeah,
they're doing things.
Sloshing.
So if you have to do that with a lorry here, then what's it like when all that's up in the air, sloshing around?
Right. Yeah, that's
how does
why.
That work then?
Yeah, that's why you'll have. Have you ever seen the internal structures of a wing?
Sorry, Don, you've gone a bit muffly. Don, you've gone a bit muffly.
That's
better.
I'm trying to hold.
No, you've gone muffly.
Yeah, the wings have a lot of wing ribs in there. That's every so many feet or whatever, you'll find a rib in the wing. That's how the wing is formed. And each one of those ribs have holes in them. They call them lightning holes just to make them lightweight. But they also act like baffling in a tanker car, like your lorries you're talking about. Keeps fuel from sloshing from side to side. Or on an airplane, when you're banking, it'll be more side to side sloshing.
Yeah, but lorries have that, and it doesn't stop it. What I was looking at is that it might stop it going backwards or forwards, because obviously I was looking up truck drivers, and they're saying if you don't drive properly, then basically you've got a wave of liquid in the back, and it just hits the back of the trailer. It hits the trailer and da-dum, makes this noise. But it doesn't work side to side, so the lorries can still turn over. if
sure.
they
Yeah,
haven't.
because they're round and the fuel will slosh and roll sideways up the wall, left and right. But yeah, in an airplane, you have a lot more baffling in there. A simple tanker like you're talking about may only have 2 or 3 baffles in there, and they may be, 3 meters apart. But in an aircraft wing, these wing ribs might only be like a meter apart, and then some of these planes are really thick wings. They don't seem like it. They can be 3 meter, a couple meters tall, a meter to 2 meters thick at the base, at the root of the wing by the fuselage, and then it
But
gets
you
skinnier
just
as
said
you
as
go
well,
out.
though, that the wings are made of like aluminium and all that. Then how does it hold 2 6-ton engines?
Well, that's all taken in the strength of the spar. Every wing has a massive structural, like they're a big box type, I-beam type constructed spar that carries the load. The actual aluminum skins and the ribs inside are there to give you the airfoil to generate the lift, but the load is carried through these 2 main spars. You generally have a front spar, which is the biggest one, and then the rear spar. So when you see an aircraft that's rated for plus or minus 5-6 Gs, that's basically what that spar can handle before it will fail, break. And the spars can be really massive. If you see my airplane, some of the real early videos, you see those big wooden sticks sticking out before it's all covered in foam and fiberglass. Those are the main spars, and they're 2 inches thick, which is about
But
50
the wings
millimeters.
are like, is it called cantilever, where basically they're attached to the plane one end, so you've got support there, but it's not attached to the other end, so there's no support, while there are 2 6-ton engines hanging on it, let alone the wires, the actual structure of the wing,
It's a
fuel.
little bit like Meccano. It's a little bit like Meccano, Karen, if you remember. Yeah, and how bale and stuff is constructed and bolted together, it's more or less like that, but it's riveted. A lot of it's riveted together.
Yeah, the basic spars will go from wingtip to wingtip. It's like one continuous piece. It doesn't just bolt to the side of the fuselage. It goes through the fuselage and continues on out the other wing. So they're pretty massive, but that's the main structure. The strength of a wing is through the spars, and there'll be a minimum of 2 spars in there. The last spar will be right back in front of where when the flaps come down for takeoffs and landings and come back up. That's basically the rear spar. And the front spar is generally at the thickest section of the wing, the airfoil.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that.
There is a question. Can I just do the question before it goes? Harsh Truth Engineer in the chat room says, asking why on every video of a plane landing awkward in the wind, etc., and the wing comes off, we don't see a spillage of fuel.
Well, the wings are sealed. There's no place for the fuel to slosh out of. Basically, they do have ports out in the wingtips that, like, say, if you take off, you can take off with more weight on an aircraft than you can land. You can take off not over gross, but at maximum gross weight. But if you had an engine problem and had to turn around and come back and land, they cannot land with all that fuel on board because it's too heavy. It can structurally damage the plane when it impacts the ground with the harsh landings. So they have to fly around for a while and jettison the fuel out. And so they'll dump thousands and thousands of gallons or liters of fuel out of the plane just to get it light enough to land. That's a pretty common thing there. So you can jettison fuel, but it's not going to leak out in any kind of a harsh crosswind environment. There's no place for it to come out. They're all sealed.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about my aircraft, Karen, is a little micro-light flex wing, and it's got a 100 horsepower engine, which runs on normal petrol, and the wings, I can have a 10 plus G-force and minus -6. Now, I would never experience that because I passed out of those sort of forces. And that's just little tubes, that's 50mm tubes that goes down the leading edge, and then just battens to make the profile in the wing, and then it's a double surface canvas sail over it. Now, the fuel in my aircraft's not in the wing, it's in the fuselage underneath my seat. But on the Airbus 370, the biggest aircraft there is, there's 11 tanks in each wing. There's 2 tanks in the tail wing, and there's a tank in the belly just behind the cabin that holds all the fuel. Now, when the aircraft's first filled, it doesn't fill the tips of the wings tanks. It fills the center parts, it fills the belly, and it fills the tailplane. And when it's flying, there's pumps on board that transfer the fuel from the inside of the wings to the outside of the wings because of the weight of it pushing up on the wings as the aircraft's flying, so they can transfer the fuel. Now, it couldn't physically land with a full tank of fuel because the wings would just break off.
It's not very good, though, is it, then, if all these planes are jettisoning all this fuel out, isn't it, all the time?
Well,
if they're releasing tons and tons of fuel all the time, it's not very good for any of us down here. This is all happening around an airport where loads of people live.
no, that only happens in an emergency when there's an incident, Karen, when an aircraft has to make an emergency landing, like the Hudson River landing. He probably didn't even get most of the fuel out. He didn't have time. But because
Can I just say, because otherwise, I don't mean to be rude otherwise, but Trouble About's joined us. Hello, Trouble. She's from Australia.
Hello, Trouble About.
Hi, good morning.
Good day.
I've just got to turn her up. She's never very loud. I've got to turn her up now.
All right.
Turn her up.
I've seen you in Hangout. Sorry, I've never seen you on a Hangout, only in chat.
No, I'm new to it all.
Ah, good.
She's been on a few Hangouts now.
Yeah, I've seen her channel. I've commented a couple times on her channel's videos. She might remember me, Dino Don 64.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, bringing people together. We are here. That's good to know, then, isn't it, Trouble?
Yeah.
So what's
Sorry,
it
I'm
like, Trouble,
just
being upside
waking
down?
Oh, I hate that question.
Sorry, Trouble.
hear
We're talking about aeroplanes a bit. That's what we're doing. I've got another question I'd like to ask. Sorry, Don. How can these planes vertically take off? I've seen them at air shows. Those big Airbuses. They go down and they vertically take off.
Yeah.
How can they manage
when you're
to
looking
do that?
when you're watching a show like that, there's no people on board, there's no cargo, the aircraft is completely empty. You might have a pilot and a co-pilot only in the airplane. They'll put bare minimum fuel on there to do whatever they want to do. They want to go up, do this little air show. So the airplane, you have maximum power available at the least amount of weight that the plane can weigh. So when you have an empty aircraft like that, the performance can be phenomenal, and that's what you're seeing in some of those videos. It'd be nice to hear some of the sounds of those when they're flying by, and you can generally tell that that's what you call slow flight.
I've been on YouTube and I've had a look, and passenger planes almost take off the same. Not all of them, but you will find passenger planes that take off and vertically go up, and people are filming them.
I disagree, Karen. No,
That's got passengers, fuel, cargo, luggage.
they're not allowed to crank more than a certain amount of degrees, and they're not allowed to climb at more than a certain amount of degrees.
Yeah, most airliners might keep like banking down to a 15-degree angle for like a minimum or maximum angle. They do very slow, steady turns. The climbs can be fairly quick, but not real nose high, because they'll pitch up and they lift pretty well. But yeah, banking and turning, they keep it real light to keep the people from getting basically motion sickness. When I take someone out flying in my airplane, I do real shallow turns, and I keep the turns to a minimum, because if you've never flown before in small aircraft, within an hour you can start getting basically seasick. So airlines, they keep the banking turns to a minimum of 15 degrees or so, just so you don't.
Can I just tell you again as well, Don? Because obviously, you know, if you're going to try and research something or look it up, I know you're looking at videos on YouTube, but I've seen some very, very, very steep banks as they take off, and within seconds they're up and they're actually got the wings almost like, you know, vertical.
That could be it.
I've seen the passenger
stuff carrying it. It's not necessarily passenger carrying planes.
Yes, it's a passenger on the on the plane filming it.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
it's going to boil down to the company and their standards, but generally they don't do aggressive maneuvers with carrying passengers. I mean, if they do, I mean, it's hard to say. I haven't really seen them.
Thing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello, Astral. We can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I'm going to turn you up, Astral. Hang on.
All right. Thanks.
You're a bit low, but you're a bit clearer. Go for it.
I've seen it at this air show that you was talking about, Karen. You've shown me, haven't you? And they are very severe bankings. You know, lift takeoff is probably 40 degrees or somewhere in that region. If that's normal, I don't know, but they are quite steep. But at the air show, they're turning the plane like it's a little remote control thing. You know, it's incredible. It is. People should have a look. I'm a bit snotted today. I'm sorry.
Oh, poor Astral. Yeah, I just think it's incredible. I mean, I did go look up some older air shows when they're doing 747s, and yeah, the 747s fly past really low, but that's all they do. They're not twisting the plane. The plane just goes in front of the people very low to the ground and then carries on, and usually there's a couple of fighter planes or other planes with it. But these Airbuses, the things that they can do, well done, Astral, because that's what it looks like. They just look like, that's it. They look like remote control planes. Have you seen anything much about 4D flying, Don? You know, like I've only seen it on like, well, amateur little planes. Have you watched any of that 4D flying?
I haven't seen, I'm not familiar with 4D. I'm familiar with what do they call it? 3D flying with like radio controlled helicopters, small helicopters, and they do these little helicopters basically doing maneuvers that a real one can't do. They call it, I think they call it 3D flying, but I'm not familiar with the term 4D at all.
Yeah, if you look up 4D flying, you'll see, and it's quite incredible, really. But it's a guy with a remote control plane, you know. But the things he can make the plane do is just amazing.
You want to see something, look up helicopters, RC helicopters, 3D RC helicopters, and it'll just blow your mind the way these things fly. I can't believe it. They're just incredible. They fly tail down, straight down, nose straight up, and they do this maneuver called a tick-tock, where the nose of the helicopter will go like your nose is going down and up, but the helicopter is sticking vertical, nose straight in the air, tail rotor straight at the ground, and they do a tick-tock. It'll go from like 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. This helicopter just back and forth, vertically standing on its tail. You know, you never know how a helicopter can do that. Upside down, sideways, going around backwards, tail first, 100 mile an hour in big loop circles. It's just incredible what they can do with those things. That's what they call 3D flying. It's all aerobatics.
Yeah, Don, the aircraft can do that, but the pilot on a real aircraft performing those maneuvers would pass out due to G-force, even with a G-suit on.
Yeah, you'd never be able to withstand the G-forces
in
an aircraft.
I've experienced the G-force. I used to go to my friend's Yak aircraft, a Russian trainer plane. We used to do loops and barrel rolls and spiral dives, and it was great fun. When he could afford to run it, because it was used like 83 litres an hour, to give you an idea of fuel. 83 litres an hour. And that's just a little two-seater.
Yeah, that's the problem with jet engines. Jet engines generally run at one speed, and that's just full throttle.
No, this was a prop one, had a radio engine.
Yeah. But I mean, for jet engines, they run at a constant speed most of the time, and they can increase the load on it and stuff as well. But they burn. That's why aircrafts hate those long waits where they're taxiing out, waiting to take off behind a string of other aircraft. They can burn 1,000 gallons of fuel just waiting to take off, because they go through so much fuel so fast, because at ground level, they're at their most inefficient. These things are designed to be flying at 30 to 40,000 feet. So when they're on the ground idling, they are just going through the fuel like crazy. It's very expensive.
Yeah, I was fed up the other day. I was at the airfield, and I went to the hold point at 05 runway, and I was held there for like 15 minutes on idle. And I thought, I'm using too much fuel. I won't have enough fuel to get to where I wanted to go originally, and then have sufficient fuel to get back safely. So I thought, I just have to change my flight plan in my head without any like pen or paper to make new calculations. So I just flew locally.
Yeah, so airliners, they have to take all that into consideration too when they fill up with fuel. So I mean, the FAA requires a minimum of 30 minutes of remaining fuel by the time you reach your destination. So you got to have at least a half hour left of fuel when you get there. So you got to pre-plan all that. You got to plan that idle time, the taxi time, the takeoff, the climb time, and then the descent time and landing time, taxi, and you're still supposed to have a half hours of fuel left.
Yeah, anyway, going back to the original question, do aircraft run on compressed air? The answer is no. There's a company in France that made cars run on compressed air, because compressed air tools in workshops are very popular, but they're big, heavy machines, and they make compressed air to run tools in workshops. And in France, back in 2008, a company, I can't remember the name, but you can check it on YouTube, they made air compressed cars and little minibuses that run on compressed air, but they never went anywhere because it wasn't viable. It wasn't viable.
Yeah, the problem
But
you have is like
does it make any difference having the, like, obviously, because we talked to Lady Co-Pilot and she tells us that when you get, obviously before the plane even leaves the airport, it's compressed. The cabin, the whole thing, whether we're sitting in and they're sitting in, is compressed. So all that has to happen. And the moment, if a plane takes off and a compressor breaks down in the engine, then the plane has to come back. It's not like it can fly on the other ones. They actually will land the plane. So does that make any difference to the aeroplane? Once it's compressed, does it make it lighter?
No, the what she's talking about is the pressurization of the aircraft. At ground level, the pressure inside the plane is going to be the same as if you were standing outside. But once you get to altitude, the air gets thinner and thinner. And if you don't pressurize the plane to the, basically 14.7 psi is the same as it is on the ground level, you start running into oxygen deprivation and stuff like that. So they have to pressurize. They take some of that compressed air from those jet engines, run it through an intercooler, then it goes into the cabin, and there's a what's called a pressurization control system in the airplane that will pressurize that airplane as if it's sitting at the ground level when you're in altitude. And that way, because if you don't do that at 30,000 feet, everybody would have to be on oxygen mask for the whole time you're in the air. Like watching the old movies from World War II with the B-17 bombers when they're at 30,000 feet, they're always got a mask on because they're breathing oxygen. If you take the mask off, you'll end up passing out and dying from asphyxiation. Hypoxia. Right. Yeah, it'll kill you. So to keep you from having to breathe oxygen the whole time, you have to pressurize the airplane as if you were standing on the ground. And then that's what happens if you see in the movies, if someone shoots a gun in the cockpit, it blows a big hole in the side of the airplane and people get sucked out because the inside of the plane is pressurized. And if you don't get an oxygen mask on real quick, you'll be dead within 30 seconds, more than likely.
Or you'll freeze to death.
Yeah, that too.
But just asking you both then, Skyfly, do you have to wear oxygen when you're up there?
No, my flights are restricted to 10,000 feet. So
yeah, you generally got to get over like what 12,500 is where oxygen.
I flew over Mount Blanc in France, and actually I didn't fly over it. I flew near to the top of it. I stayed below 10,000 feet, but I could have gone over it. But you can. Back in the hang gliding days, I went up to 13,000 feet because there's no rules in that. I did go up to 13,000 feet in the Pyrenees in France, and it's on the French-Spanish border. So yeah, you can go up to 13,000 feet, and then after that, you need oxygen.
Yeah, and then also at those altitudes, especially here in the States, you are now into what's considered instrument flying rules, IFR weather, and then you have to be in complete contact with the air traffic control. You got to file flight plans, and there's all kinds of regulations, but that's where all the commercial airlines will be flying above anything above 12, 13,000 feet. So there's a lot different flying rules once you get to those elevations. But generally,
Just asking, have you watched any of Enslaved by No Media?
yeah, I've seen some of his, and I watched some of the ones that you've been putting out recently on like copies of what he was doing, clips and stuff. But yeah, I've seen him, but I don't know where he came up with the idea of compressed air. It's a neat idea, but I mean,
I meant more like he's even questioned that when he's looking through his P900, it tells him a different distance than what Google Maps says. And as far as he can see, when he's looking up at these planes, you're being told that planes fly at 30 or 40, whatever it is, 1,000 feet. And they're not. They're much closer. Because he's done, you know, I know that you talked about it, Don, the circle of light which goes around us, which is a circle, but obviously the land's flat. The same thing happens with his camera when he looks up. A normal plane will come in and go out of his thing, but any of those contrail things will just glide through the air forever. But what they've kind of done is they're using smaller planes, but in your mind, because you think they're flying higher, you think the planes are bigger, but they're smaller in the sky because they're flying higher. And he's saying they're not flying higher; they're just small planes, and they're only flying. They're not flying as high. These are all wrong.
Right.
The distance.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. It's an interesting idea, and it's something that you could test. Like he claimed to be so many miles from the airport, and by using his P900, he's able to zoom into a certain range and see the plane. Then when the planes are flying overhead, supposedly at these 30,000 feet, he's able to zoom in at a much closer image and read the actual aircraft end numbers off of it. And so, yeah, that'd be an interesting experiment to do. If you could find some place where you have good line of sight to an airport at, say, 10 miles out, or whatever 30,000 feet equals to, and then do a comparison to see. But there's going to be some atmospheric issues there to deal with, and for the ground level observations on a horizontal look, and then the vertical up. But yeah, it'd be interesting to compare and see. I've seen some of his videos where he did that, and it got me wondering. It's like, wow, that's something you could actually, anyone could look into and test.
Yeah, Don, I've thought about this myself, because obviously being a pilot, I'm flying all the time, and I'm looking down and I can see like tennis courts in people's gardens and that, and I'm thinking, that looks really small. And I'm only like 1,000 feet up, and I'm thinking, it doesn't like make sense. So I'm thinking to myself, right, I need to do a test. So what I'll do, and we'll do this test very soon, is I'll get one of my friends to fly overhead at 5,000 feet and take a picture of him with a 200mm lens, and then fly over myself and take a picture of the same aircraft parked on the ground at from 5,000 feet, so exactly the same settings. And I'll compare the two pictures to see if there is this difference looking up and looking down. Because I think looking up is different from looking down, because you don't have the atmospheric conditions. Yeah,
because as you're looking up, you're on the ground level, you're looking through the thick layer first, and then it gets thinner as it goes up, and then from in the air, you're looking from thin down into thicker. So is it a wash? I'm not sure, but it'd be an interesting test to see. Yeah, I noticed when I generally fly around 1,000 feet myself above the ground, and it's like you can hardly even tell anybody. You couldn't pick nobody out, from 1,000 feet. You can see them, but you couldn't tell who it is.
Yeah, I went up to 10,000 feet a few years ago. I go up there quite regularly, and I've filmed the ground, obviously, because I'm above it, and I'm looking down, and it's like big maize fields which are yellow, and then you've got the green fields next to it. I'm looking down, I'm thinking, that looks really small to me, and obviously the camera looks different. And then I think to myself, well, I know how big that field is because I can go and check it on Google, or I can measure it myself. And I'm thinking, if I'm looking up at an aircraft that's 6 miles up, like a 747 that's flying over at 36,000 feet, which is about 6 miles, I can see it. But if I was flying over that height and looking down, I wouldn't see it. It would just be a small dot in the town at the airport. Do you see my point?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah, because I'm, thinking about it when I fly around over my airfield where I take off from, the plane, when my friend lands before I do, and I'm still up, 1,000 feet flying across, you look at it and it's like, yeah, it looks kind of small. And then when he's up flying around, he doesn't fly very high. He stays fairly low. And but yeah, I can see your point there.
Yeah,
But
that's what I was thinking about.
yeah, because those videos he was taking where he was showing the planes taking off, and he could zoom into the 83 times on the P900, and then was able to zoom in on an airplane at 30,000 feet, and he could zoom in. It looked like the plane was closer at the same zoom than it was taking off. So, but that would be if you could have a controlled test where you can go exactly a specific distance from an airport and know the planes that are taking off, get your pictures, and then try and catch the same type of airplane flying overhead at the same distance away, but only vertical, and then compare the objects. That's where I was thinking that, if they wanted to fool us on altitude, the governments are the ones that pretty much give us the instrumentation, the information to build instrumentations. They're saying every 1,000 feet of altitude you lose so much barometric pressure over that 1,000 feet. So
Yeah,
I mean,
3
if they
millibars,
fudge,
1,000 feet.
yeah, if they fudge those numbers and the numbers are actually different than that, then you could see where they could be fooling you with the altitudes. They're not flying as high as they say they are.
I just said something that was completely wrong. I said 3 millibars per 1,000 feet. I meant 3 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet, and 1 millibar is 32 feet. Or sorry, it's 29 feet, and that's 29. I did mess up.
Yeah,
Hello,
so I mean,
you guessed.
yeah, if they give you the information and all instrumentations are calibrated off of that information, and if that information is wrong, then all the calibrations are wrong, and then all the altitudes will be wrong. But that might be what they want you to think. They might want you to think you're at these exorbitant heights when you're only maybe half the distance. But I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I've got a friend that's got an airfield at Billingshurst, which is just under the Gatwick zone there.
I know where that is. I used to go to school there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Billingshurst. So Billingshurst, in relation, it's in the UK. It's like near to Gatwick Airport. It's about probably 20 miles away, and it's in the It's called the Gatwick Zone, and you have to fly below 2,100 feet at that point. And I've actually taken off there and gone up to like 2,000. What am I saying? 2,000 feet, and I've actually seen like jumbo jets, and I can see the pilot through the window, and because I'm just below him. So they are at that height, and there's flight lanes. There's things called flight lanes on air charts, and they're called flight level 5.5, which means 5,500 feet, and so on. And flight level 10 is 10,000 feet. These exist, but they're based on the standard what's it called? Atmospheric pressure. Yeah, 1,013.2 millibars. When I've done that flight over the Isle of Wight at 10,000 feet, the pressure at sea level, which is called QNH, it was 1,036. So the flight level that is above that place was well above 10,000 feet, which is the height that I was saying. You'll see it in the video. I can't remember all the details. It was years ago. Anyway, I'll be right back. I've got to get coffee.
Yeah, so just to say Jay's joined us. Hi, Jay.
Hello.
Hello, my darling. We're talking aeroplanes. Thank you, my darling. We're talking aeroplanes today. I just wanted to, well, this question's in my mind. So you've understood that they could be lying to us about the height and how high we're flying. So that's why a lot of people are questioning the pressed air thing. And how much like weight. I mean, like the weights to take off. I mean, it's just incredible that these things can even take off. And I mean, I was really shocked. I mean, I know I've put this out myself, but I don't know, when a plane goes down the runway, you just imagine the feeling sucking you back and this noise. You're actually going really, really fast. And the plane I last flew on, they said was doing 80 miles down the runway to take off, and that the bigger planes are about 100, 120 miles an hour. And I was really shocked. I just thought they were going about 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, when you're not used to speeds, over highway speeds in a car, it can seem pretty drastic at times. I did drag racing, car racing, and I do over 130 miles per hour with my cars in a quarter mile. So it's getting pretty quick, pretty fast. But yeah, with the bigger airplanes, they have flaps on the back of the wings. They'll drop them down to a certain degree, maybe 10, 15 degrees. And what that essentially does is most of them are what they call Fowler flaps. They don't just fold down like on a hinge. They slide backwards and go down. And what that does, in essence, is make the wing longer from front to back, from the nose of the airfoil to the trailing edge. It makes the wing longer, which in turn creates more lift, but at the same time it creates more drag. But the idea is it allows you to take off at a much slower speed, and as you climb out, and then you'll slowly retract them. But also on the front of the wing, they have like flaps that extend forward, and it does the exact same thing. It just gives you more airfoil to create more lift so you can take off at a much slower speed. The ideal conditions for taking off and landing in any aircraft is you want to go as slow as you can, to minimize any harm of an accident. So by having all these flaps, what they call with the landing gear down, the flaps all down.
Sorry,
Right.
Brian's stirring his coffee. Carry on.
But yeah, their whole idea is you want to get them as slow as you can when you come in for landing to reduce the risk of accidents.
Can you hear?
Yeah, you're low.
Oh, it's because my icon's saying that I'm muted. Sorry about that. I heard something about stirring coffee and I thought, well, I've just done that. Sorry.
Oh, was it you? I thought it was Brian, but anyway. Carry on, Don. Sorry, carry on.
So taking off in the 100-mile-an-hour range, that sounds pretty logical, even on the great big planes. Those planes have such a massive airfoil wing shape to them. They generate a lot of lift, so they have to in order to carry the weight that they're supposed to be carrying. So, but by making the wings with the flaps that go forward of the wing and the flap sections in the back go farther back, it creates more of a camber on the wing, which creates a greater amount of lift potential. So when you take off, if you had the flaps like all the way down, like you were going to come in for landing, the aircraft won't climb. It'll the purpose of flaps is to slow you down and allow you to descend faster without increasing forward airspeed. So it allows you to physically slow down from your cruising speed of 600 miles an hour down to a little over 100 miles per hour for landing. It allows you a nice controlled descent. It allows you to descend faster without gaining any forward airspeed. That's the whole purpose behind flaps. Slows you down, but
can I say something, Don? Can I say something, Don? This again to go back to enslaved media, by no media. Is reckoning, like we've just talked about, that the aeroplanes are not as high up in the sky as they're telling us, and also that the planes are not going as fast as they're telling us, because he can record it in Finder. He can he's filming it in his, so he can like almost measure the time, the whole thing, and he's reckoning that they're not going as fast.
Well, when you're talking about airspeeds, flying speeds, when you're over ground, we pretty much know the distances of, like from the east coast to the west coast of America. We know it's roughly 3,000 miles, and if you can travel across that 3,000 miles in set amount of time, you can calculate your airspeed. But when you get out over the oceans, you can't really do that. And then even over land, if you get involved into the jet stream, if you're flying with the jet stream or against the jet stream, or flying with or against winds aloft is what they're referred to. When you're flying, you want to get into an area where you fly with the wind so it can carry you along faster. So once you get into situations like that where you're flying with or against winds aloft above the ground, then that screws up your whole measure of how fast you are physically moving over the ground, so you can't really judge distance. So that's like a boat on the water where you're flying with the current or against the current. You have no real indication of how far you've gone other than what they tell you the distance is supposed to be or is. So they can fudge those numbers because you're never really going to know, because of the water moves, and the boat has to fight or ride with it, so you could get there sooner or later than planned. And the flying is the same thing. There's no real true way of determining exactly how far you flew and how fast you're flying. So they can fudge things with that, even with the GPS, but they can program the GPS to do whatever they want it to do, make you think that you're here and not there and stuff like that. So, I mean, there could be some fudging of information there, but unless you're on the ground in a car driving it and your car is accurate with its odometer, you can measure that. But in an airplane or a boat, you can't do that. So you're up to you have to rely on the distances that you are giving to determine how much fuel you're going to need to take the trip across the ocean in a plane or a boat. After a while, you'll get an average of doing it over and over, but the waters are constantly changing their speeds of currents. And then the airplanes, you've got winds aloft with jet streams and everything else to deal with. So you can kind of get an average, an idea, but if they're saying that the distance between America and England is this, a lot of that is pretty good. But when you get down past the equator into the southern hemisphere, you don't know, you really don't know where you're at, because it's more water than land.
Can I ask, an airplane would do more kilometres than a car underneath it, wouldn't it? That's the taxi.
Astral, Trouble, can you sit nearer to your microphone, darling?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're a bit faint, and I can't turn you up anymore. I've turned everybody up as far as I can.
Okay, I've just got a different set of headphones.
That's better. Go for it now. Go for it.
Hear it? I was just going to say, airplanes would travel further than cars because they have to taxi up and down, and so they go on an angle, don't they? So they would even do more kilometres than what we do on the ground.
Yes, because you're adding a third dimension to a 2D plane. Basically, you do have to climb up, and when you're climbing, it's a slower speed when you're doing a climb, because you have three basic speeds when you're flying. You have takeoff speeds, climb to altitude speed, and then you have cruising speed, and then you have descending speeds. And an aircraft has set parameters. Every airplane has a different climb speed, cruising speed, and descending speed. So yeah, it's because you're basically flying in a great big arc. You got to fly up at an angle, maybe 30-40 degree angle of attack, you call it, to get to your altitude, and then you level off, fly straight and level, and then you do a descent the same way, a shallow descent of maybe 500 feet a minute descent rate. But yeah, it's you're making a great big arc essentially, whereas on the ground you're just doing a nice flat straight line. So you are covering a greater distance, but it's straight distance. You're not going around hills and zigzagging like on a car on a road.
Why do they use feet instead of miles? Like why when you're up in the air and you're doing huge kilometres, have they shrunk it down to feet? Like, I don't.
I don't know that I've ever seen the reasoning behind that. Yeah, because whenever you see altitudes always in feet above MSL, they call it mean sea level. All altitudes are either MSL or AGL. AGL stands for above ground level. Now, if the ground you've taken off from is at 1,000 feet above sea level, you're already at 1,000 MSL, but you're at 0 AGL, above the ground. But all altimeters, when you take off, you'll set your altimeter to the level of the ground you're taking off from. So like my airfield I fly out of is just under 700 feet high, so I have to set my altimeter at 700 before I take off, because they're sensitive to barometric pressure changes You know, when you got high barometric pressure or low barometric pressure days, you have to adjust your instruments. But once you get into the airlines flying, once you get above, like they call them, flight levels, what is it?
Transition
remember.
altitude.
Well, what's the flight level where you set your
It's
altimeters
called
to
transition
just?
altitude. It's 3,000 feet in the UK. I'm not sure what it is in America.
I'm thinking it's a lot higher than that over here. But once you get up to a certain flight level for the airliners, they just set it to MSLs. They don't even. You just set it. You set your altimeter to 29.92 inches of barometric pressure. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, the reason they use different measurements is because you have to be sufficient in mathematics to calculate the difference. Like there's one air law which uses meters, feet, and miles and nautical miles in the same law. And it says you have to be so many feet away from a cloud, so many meters vertically, and so many yards horizontally. And they do that so you know what the calculation is to work it out. Because if you don't, then you shouldn't be a pilot, really.
Yeah, from over here in the States, for us to maintain clearance from any obstacle is 500 feet above, below, or horizontally.
No, I'm talking about clouds. Obviously, in the UK, it might be different. But
yeah, that goes for clouds too.
Yeah, 3,000 feet without a passenger, as long as you remain clear of cloud, that's the rule. There's a rule that says you're not allowed to fly below 500 feet, but it's a grey rule. It means you're not allowed to fly within 500 feet of any building, structure, or vessel. So you can fly at 2 feet above the ground, providing there's no people around.
Right. It's like here, I live right by Lake Erie. It's one of the Great Lakes here in the United States. And I can fly right on top of the water if I want. But if there's a boat on the water, I have to stay 500 feet away from it, to the sides and above it. So if I come up on it, I have to go over it 500 feet before I can come back down, or go to the left or the right of it 500 feet. There's a 500-foot bubble around that boat.
Yeah, I wanted to fly in Israel a few years ago, to fly across there. And they got a rule out there. You're not allowed to fly above 500 feet, which I thought was great.
Wow. Yeah, over here, so when I'm flying over here, fly over my house, I always have to stay 500 feet above the ground, because you can't be closer than 500 feet to any object, whether it's a tree, a house, or a dog, or a cat. You know, you got to stay 500 feet above that.
In the UK.
Yeah, trees too. If there's a tree in the middle of the field, you got to stay 500 feet away from it.
Unless you're doing a PFL, practice forced landing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's what I always do. That I do a practice forced landing, and that allows me to fly down to 2 feet above the ground to do the practice forced landing, which is all part of the training. Yeah,
we just call it emergency landings or engine out. Yeah, same thing. Yes. I've seen over here, they've got laws where some states can. I've seen where a guy got in trouble, and the state police came out to the airport and arrested him for reckless flying. And that's what he was doing. He was practicing his engine out landings. He was doing approaches to, cornfields or farm fields, just flying down low and then climbing back out. He was just practicing for his private pilot license, and state police came and arrested him. He had to get lawyers and fight him and everything. And I think he finally ended up winning, but it cost him a lot of money in the long run, because the state said he was reckless flying, but that he was just practicing his procedures to get his pilot license.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, so that was a weird one there, weird case.
Could I just say that Flat Earth Unity, Josh has joined us, and he's from America. Hi, Josh. Is he there? He wants to sit in. Is he there? Yeah, he's there. Oh, no. He put it off. Anyway, well, Josh is there, and when Josh can say hello, Josh will come in and say hello. Can I just change the stuff?
I definitely don't want to disrupt anything. I would much rather let these brothers build what they were building on.
Thank you, Josh. Sorry, Don, interrupting. It's just when people join, I feel also rude not introducing them because they've come on the panel. Yeah, had you finished roughly what you were saying?
Is it just me, or is it everyone dropping off tonight with like a bad connection?
There is a bit of a connection issue thing. You can hear it in Josh, you can hear it in you, but some of us are all right. Don's all right, Brian's all right, Trouble's all right. I haven't had much from Patricia tonight. Lev was all right. It's just you and Josh sounded a little bit there, but it's the way it is, isn't it? We just have to go on. Can I change the subject a little bit? You must know what this is, Don. I reckon you do. Captain Wire. A lot of people won't know what Captain Wire is. I saw it on a program, like a documentary, probably in the late 80s, and they were explaining that that's how they used to put this wire in all the aeroplanes. And then it was fine until it started to get old, and then it was brittle. And then when it got brittle, then it sort of ignited, a bit like Mission Impossible. And everybody knows that the hydraulics of the plane are all in the wires. And of course, when the wires start then sparking, it just knocks out the hydraulics of the plane and the plane comes out of the sky. But they took it out of all the military planes. They left it in the commercial planes for a while. But this program was this long ago. It was when Richard Branson had just brought his planes out. And I remember the program saying that his aeroplanes were having the new wire. But I mean, they were sort of saying he didn't really want to fly Lithuania Air and stuff like that, because these planes are old and have Captain Wire, would have had Captain Wire for a lot longer. Do you know what that is, Don?
I'm not familiar with that. I've never heard of that, Captain Wire. Unless
they took it out of all the military planes first.
Unless he's talking about the wires, because you can have, there's 3 different types of controls you can make from your steering wheel, joysticks out to
no,
each.
It's not that. It's actually the wire they use. It's called
the
Captain Wire.
The electrical wire.
Yeah.
It's probably got something. Yeah. Most wiring in aircraft is always copper wire, and it's usually coated in, might be tin coated with a little bit like lead, and then it has some type of outside sheathing, plastics. The old aircraft wire had kind of a cloth winding on it, kind of like real old house wiring here in the States. It was kind of a woven weave on the outside to insulate the wire from short circuiting. Now, a lot of the coatings on the wires, like the plastic coating on your extension cords, after a while they'll break down from ozone and just atmosphere, and they'll get brittle and fall off. And that might be what he's talking about, is the physical coatings that's protecting the copper wire.
They didn't fall off, they ignited.
Yeah, because once that stuff burns, breaks down, you can have wires start arcing in there. If they start corroding, resistance starts going. The more corrosion in a wire, the higher the resistance for electricity to flow through, and that creates a hot spot where it could eventually cause a fire and ignite. Yes, any wire can do that.
It's a long time ago, but again, it's one of those things that not many people are going to know about. But this did happen. It's real, Captain Wire, and the military took it out of all the planes. Can I just say, we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 other people with Don, me. That's 9 people on here. Is there any questions anybody else would like to ask Don on aeroplanes? Silence.
No, I'm pretty good.
Absolutely. I would like to know if a pilot has any say or any overseeing of the maintenance of his craft.
Yeah, the pilot can refuse to fly an aircraft for a maintenance issue, because the pilot in command has ultimate authority on that aircraft flying. If you're in an aircraft and you're having and you're over an airport and you have an emergency, you override everything. You can come in and land on an airfield when they're telling you no, you can't, because you're responsible for the plane, the passengers. So the pilot is the ultimate authority when it comes to what can be done. Now, if there's an instrument or something that he feels is critical to flying and he refuses to fly it, then he doesn't have to. They won't do it. They'll just get somebody else to fly it if the company wants the plane out. But yeah, the pilot has the ultimate authority over practically everything.
I think what he's asking is, are they like engineers? Do they know how the planes work?
Most pilots, if they're anything like me and all my friends who are pilots, you live and breathe, sleep and dream airplanes all your life as a kid. So you learn aircrafts from a very early age. You learn all the control surface, ailerons, rudder, flaps, everything. You learn all that stuff when you're a kid, and then you just keep learning and learning as you go, and then you eventually go out and start taking flying lessons and learn the bulk of your information after that. But they all generally know. But when you get into the newer stuff like these Airbuses you guys have over there, I mean, they get taught a lot through training to learn to fly the thing. So they learn mostly everything, but when it comes down to how things physically work, they may not know all the details. They just know what it's supposed to do and what you got to do if it doesn't work. But some pilots, they just go out, become a pilot because they want to make the big bucks. Other people do it because they love flying. They always want to fly. Like me, I love flying, but I don't want to be an airline pilot. I don't want nothing to do with it. I just want to fly for fun. I just want to fly. Other people, they just want to do it for the money, and they may not know as much detail as like I would.
Is it hard to be able to, is it hard to be able to quote fly for fun?
No,
Is there
there's so many. Yeah, you have so many choices of aircraft nowadays. The only limit you have is how deep is your wallet. Now, like these big airliners, they practically fly themselves. Other than the pilot taking the thing off the ground, taxiing and taking off, and physically landing and taxiing and parking it, most of it's all done by computers through autopilot. They very rarely fly the thing after it's up to altitude. Even climbing to altitude, it's all autopilot most of the time. They're just sitting there watching gauges, and if something goes wrong, they're there to override it and keep it going. But yeah, to do a basic learn to fly, it's not hard. Some people just have an act for it, like I did. I picked it up like anybody walking, learning to walk. It was easy for me. Riding a bike, once you learn, you never forget.
Yeah, you're Mr. Daredevil, you are, Don.
The only thing I haven't never gotten into yet is aerobatics, and I'd love to do aerobatics. Yeah. Yeah, the gyrocopter is a pretty fun little machine. You can throw that thing around pretty good.
Can I ask Josh? Josh, what was your meaning behind your question?
I was just curious if, say something was wrong with the aircraft, if the pilot knows what the person is fixing, or if he had, if pilots even themselves even have a background in aircraft mechanics, if that's like a prerequisite of any kind.
I would have to say most of the commercial airline pilots that fly those big commuter planes, no, they wouldn't know probably 10% of what makes the thing work, other than knowing what's on the plane and what it's supposed to do. As far as how the stuff physically works, they probably don't have a clue. Most of it's all electronic computer controlled now, and they just punch into the computer what they want it to do, and it does it. But as far as knowing how it works, most of them probably don't even know how a jet engine works. I mean, they might know the basic theories, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, they probably don't understand it.
So he won't know how an aeroplane works then. So they still could be lying, couldn't they?
You learn.
I know that you're a pilot, and I much respect you, and you said some amazing things on our channel, and you're a lovely man, but I'm just still not convinced about aeroplanes. There's something not right. I don't know what it is. Not talking about the planes you fly. I'm talking about these planes they've been making probably commercially the last 10 years, those big Airbuses. That's what I'm talking about.
Right, yeah. It's all scalable from the small ones all the way to the big ones. It's just that the big ones now they just have so much computer controls on them that the pilot hardly has to do anything nowadays. They program the computers for the flight, and it pretty much does everything for you. but they are massively complicated, I can tell you that much. And I mean, the technology, if you look at some airplanes, you look at how big and long they are and how skinny and narrow the wings look. I look at that and think, you know, how does that thing fly? You know, with what I know is like, how's it fly? But I mean, it boils down to engineering. You also was mentioning about when airplanes have very few passengers on them, they want the passengers to sit in specific parts of the plane. That has to do with what is called weight and balance. You can't take and put everybody in the back end of an airplane when it's empty, because it'll make the plane tail heavy and it'll cause control issues in flying. So the generally
doesn't that just tell you something, Don? Don, can I just say this? I mean, I don't mean to sound like, because obviously I am not an expert in any of this. You actually are not. But when you say that, right, you've got 6 tons of engine each, right? So sometimes they've got 4 engines. Like I said, you've got all the weight of the wires and the hydraulics and the fuel and the luggage and the food and the seats and all this. So what would a few passengers make with all this fuel on there? I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I
Well, it
agree with
depends
you,
on.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
You feel the same. What difference would it make with all those tons and tons and tons? With 30 passengers, 20 passengers, they've all got to sit in a certain way to level the plane out. I can't see it. I just don't get it.
It's called the centre of
Not
gravity,
only that,
Karen.
But I can understand where he comes from. You say 30 passengers. That's 3 tons if each one of them weighs 100 pounds. So I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah, Karen, it's called centre of gravity. The plane has to be balanced. So if you've got too much weight at the back, it's going to be storing a
Yeah, but that's my point. If it's got to be balanced, there you go.
and it's the same when you've got extra luggage. I mean, you have to pay for extra luggage because apparently they've got to put that into the calculation. But I can go on there with a pram and a baby seat, and no calculations are made. They just whack it on the thingy, and I don't have to pay any extra for it. And I don't know. There's some scam going on there.
Yeah.
No, when you put your suitcase on those conveyor belts at the airport, there's got a scale behind the counter, and they can see the weight of it, and it's all recorded as it goes through the terminal to the plane to be loaded.
Yeah, and then a lot of those, some of those are cargoes, not specifically luggage, but even a lot of luggage, they're put into like little trailers, and then those trailers are slid into the aircraft, and each one of those trailers, big baggage compartments, are weighed, and then they're put into the plane in specific spots, and then they're all put onto like a spreadsheet.
Look how much the luggage would weigh, and then suddenly, even 10, 15 passengers is going to make that much difference with all this going on. Because often we don't realise. I mean, you do realise now, and the more you get into it. But when a plane takes off, there's passengers in there, but it's carrying cargo.
Am I being heard?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're there.
Something wrong with my.
Still resting a bit though.
You're breaking up now.
Oh, something. I've got a bad connection today. I'm sorry. I hope you can hear me. But those cargo bins, for the luggage, they don't weigh anything. They're made of aluminium. They're very, 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 very. I know this because
maybe those things are, but the luggage in it won't be. There'll be luggage.
No, exactly. And then there's so many bags per container. You can go and look at it online to see how many bags go in those containers. Remember the exact number. And really, it's about that. You can't get any more. I think 20 odd average suitcase size bags. Where obviously also depending on which size bin it is, because there are various different types. And the configuration is slightly different. Also, from airline to airline is slightly different. So but they don't really weigh anything, those bins. I know the luggage going online and doing the math floor. I've got a bad connection, so I yield the floor. I might have to go, actually.
Well, you can sit in, can't you, if you want, and try and answer, but you are just breaking up a little bit. But yeah. Well, sorry,
Yeah.
and don't forget, Don, they give you a free, like you can have free luggage in the fact that you can carry a handheld thing, but it's still a little suitcase, and you can have, what is it? I don't know how many pounds you can have in that.
Yeah.
I don't
What it
know
does,
about wait, but I can tell you, excuse me for interrupting, Don. I'm so sorry. This
It's okay.
delay is killing us. I don't know about a definite weight, but I know that our carry-on luggage was not very heavy, but each of our luggages, for like I said, we got 5 kids, so there were 3 luggages packed full, and these things I know had to weigh 50 pounds each.
Yeah, see, on an airplane, you have a center of gravity point on the plane. If you could take and put the plane on your finger and balance it, you will find out that earlier I was talking about those big wing spars where the load is carried on the wing. That wing spar is generally in the center of gravity of the airplane. If you could put the plane on the tip of your finger and balance it, it will balance somewhere right around that spar in the wing. So the bulk of the weight of the fuel and everything is right in the center of gravity of the airplane. So going for front to rear wise, left to right, you would balance that the same for both sides. But front to rear, most of the bulk of the fuel is right in the center of gravity. Now there's a range forward of that center of gravity and a range to the back of that center of pressure is a point on the wing. There's center of pressure, center of gravity. There's multiple different centers, but generally the plane is going to balance here, and you have a limit to where if you get so much weight forward, you can't go over that limit or it'll be nose heavy. And if you put the weight too far behind that center of gravity, then it becomes tail heavy and you have problems there. And both of them will lead to a crash, out of control condition. But the bulk of the weight of the fuel is in the center of gravity of the airplane. So, but if you take 100 passengers and stick them clear in the back tail of the airplane, it will be out of balance and it won't be able to fly. It won't take off. It'll crash. So you have to keep the bulk of the weight in the center of the plane. The tail of the airplane is mostly empty. There's really nothing back there. After you get so far back, it's just empty. But yeah, you have to. The pilot gets all the weight information of all that luggage is given to the pilot, and they put it in a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet will tell them if they're in or out of balance for taking off. And they've probably got a pretty good sized window there of what's good for taking off with. But they get a sheet of everything that's going in that plane. They have to know what the weight and balance is. Every aircraft has to have a weight and balance before it takes off. And that's the responsibility of the pilot and that to make sure it's within the limits.
It seems incredible that you can have all these tons and tons and tons of other stuff, and then 20, 30 passengers is going to make that much difference.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so, but yeah, generally they'll just put them in the center of the plane, like right over top of the wing is where you're going to find most of them put, unless there's too much weight from the luggage in the forward section or the back section. They may need to shift the weight of the crew. A little goes a long ways. Like on an airplane, if you put a 1 pound of weight on the nose of the plane, it might make it a tad heavy. But if you put that 1 pound of weight in the very tip of the tail, it has an effect 10 times that it does on the nose of the plane, because it's all to do with leverage, your long arm of a leverage points. A longer bar.
Yeah,
you can
I'm quite surprised they could land on those little wheels, to be honest.
yeah. So, but yeah, you put a tiny bit of weight in the tail, it's like putting 10 times the weight in the nose. A little weight in the tail is worth a lot. So like when my airplane, when it's finished, if I need to add a little weight to the nose, you might move the battery towards the nose of the plane. If you need it towards the tail, you can move it to the back towards the tail, but you won't move it that far back because a little weight goes a long ways when you're in the tail section. So balance is critical in any aircraft, helicopters, airplanes, jets. Everything has to be balanced. The ultralights, the little hang gliders, everything has to be balanced properly, or it won't fly.
Yeah, another thing. Commercial aircraft, they use nitrogen in the tire pressure rather than just normal air, they put nitrogen in there to pump the tires up because it's not affected by pressure or temperature.
Yeah, it has less expansion than air. Air expands and contracts a lot real fast. Jets can climb to altitude so much quicker, so the pressure in the tire, like Tesla's car in space there, the tires will blow up because of the pressure differential. But yeah, nitrogen isn't affected by temperature as much as just regular air. So yeah, they use nitrogen in high, fast climbing aircraft, high altitude flying aircraft.
Is it the 727 that has exposed wheels that don't have like doors that cover them? I can't remember which one it is.
No, I'm not familiar with commercial stuff. I rarely pay any attention to them.
Yeah, and the tires are exposed to the air, so they come up. They do lift up into the fuselage, but they're not got little doors that cover them up. And I was thinking they're going to be exposed to the cold and that. And then I learned about the nitrogen. They use nitrogen in the tires.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Well, yeah. Over time, that wheel wells on any airplane are exposed to atmospheric air out there. They're not sealed or anything like that. So if it gets to 50 below, those things are going to see 50 below because they're not in part of the pressurized cabin where it's heated and kept at ground level pressures and stuff. So whether it has doors or not, it's still going to be the same temperature in there. That's what happens where you've seen stories over a few years. I just seen one recently where a couple kids tried to hide out in the wheel well of an airplane and ended up landing gear came down or something, and they fell to their death if they didn't freeze to death.
Yeah. Another point about the Airbus is the compressed air that comes out the engines. It's not running the aircraft. It's just compressed air. It's heated to a ridiculous temperature, and it runs down the leading edge of the aircraft, which is the front part of the wing, to stop icing on the wing before it cools down to go into the cabin pressure.
Yeah, they use the compressors on a jet engine use more. It makes more air than the engine will consume, so they bleed that air off. They can bleed it off to do the de-icing for the leading edge of the wings. Even around the inlet of the engine cowling, you see that nice shiny chrome-looking ring. That's de-icing also. There's hot air circulates through there to keep ice from forming on the inlets of the engines. The nose of the plane, especially the leading edge of the wings, the leading edge of the fin, vertical fin, elevator, all that is what they call de-icing. They run hot air through there to keep ice from forming when you're at particular conditions at altitude. You don't have to be very high to run into ice. So that's one means. And then there's also use the air to go in and pressurize the cabin to maintain pressure at altitude. And then you can also bleed it off through like a generator and spin a generator with an air compressor and power electricity and stuff like that. So it's used for a lot of things.
A lot of people will be asking this question: can you step on the wing of an aircraft? Because there's a sign on like light aircraft saying no step, for obvious reason, because it's very thin. It could be fabric, it could be aluminium, so it's very weak. But on a commercial aircraft, you can actually park many cars on the center of the wing because it's got the cord section, the main strut. But on the leading edge and the trailing edge, where you have to affect the ailerons and the fins, that's very weak because it's just thin metal. But the center part of the wing is very strong. And you could probably park. I reckon a 747 could put a Chieftain tank on the center of the wing, and it wouldn't damage it if it was put on the jet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let me explain this to you. If you're not familiar, the people listening that aren't familiar with,
I was just correctly on most aircraft, commercial airliners, that is, you can see where you can walk. In case of an emergency.
Yeah, that's what they call wing walk area. That's where wing walk come from.
Exit door, and follow the step. There is some sort of instruction there. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, that's where the term wing walk comes from. They'll have a thing on there where you can walk on the wing without damaging the surface of the wing. But going back to G forces on an airplane, if an airplane can pull 4 Gs, 5 Gs, that means that wing is strong enough to carry the load of 5 times its weight. So let's say an aircraft weighs 1,000 pounds and it has a load rating of 5 Gs. When you do a real hard, tight bank maneuver, you could load that airplane up to 5 times its normal weight. So 5,000 pounds is what that wing is capable of supporting before it will fail. And that's usually only half the rating. If they rate an aircraft at 5 Gs, it's actually rated it could actually handle 10 Gs, 10,000 pounds instead of 5,000 pounds. So if an airplane weighs, 40,000 pounds and you can do 5 Gs, there's what 200,000 pounds that wing can support before it fails. So every aircraft has a wing load rating like that. So, 5 Gs, that's 5 times gravity.
Yeah, Donald, I had a serious accident in an aircraft back in 1997. I used to be a check pilot for the British Microlight Aircraft Association. And I was doing a check flight on this particular aircraft, a microlight aircraft, and I was doing a turning store. And I exceeded the G-force that the aircraft was rated for during the store because it flipped upside down and it didn't. It tumbled, which means it's like doing a loop, but backwards. I'd done 3 tumbles and the wings just fell apart and broke off. And I fell 2,000 feet from the air and I survived. And I'm only one of 3 people in the world that's survived that accident.
Yeah, that was probably more like a, what do they call it, a tethered fall. It's like having a streamer. Because of the wings, if they didn't snap clean off, they were up there flapping, causing resistance, and you probably fell at a slower rate speed than you would if the wings came off.
Like a sycamore, it was. The wings broke off, but there was a safety cord in the main pylon, which is called the pylon, which holds the wings to the plane.
Yeah.
That bar, the pylon broke off from the wing. And the wing was damaged and the propeller snapped off and ripped holes in the wings. But the aircraft spiraled down because it's a microlight. It's called a weight shift. So the weight controls it. And it was hanging from a wire. The wing was hanging from a wire. It was damaged. There was no propeller. It wasn't running. The engine's stalled, obviously, because it's broken. And I fell from 2,000 feet. And survived in 1997. I have a video on YouTube about it.
You hurt?
Yeah, loads of broken bones. I was in hospital for weeks.
Yeah, we had a guy over here that had powered parachute, and he tested the new airfoil configurations for the factory, and he went out flew a powered parachute, and the airfoil folded up on him, collapsed. And he ended up falling, but it was like a streamer. He crashed, same thing. He was in the hospital for weeks, but he survived only because it acted like a streamer and it slowed his fall down to a survivable level.
Yeah, I remember when I was falling, it was like a slow motion. And I was thinking, I remember that woman that got sucked out of the cockpit of that aircraft, like at 37,000 feet, and she landed on a mountainside and survived. And I thought, if she can survive, then I can.
Wow.
That's coming to my head. I don't know why. I don't remember the story about it, but I remember the details.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, there was the windscreen broke on a 737 or something stupid. And the pilot or the co-pilot got sucked out or something.
Got sucked out. Do you remember the Hawaiian flight where the top of the fuselage blew off? And they landed the airplane.
On the news. It was about the 80s or something.
Yeah. There was a Honolulu Airlines or something, one of the Hawaiian Airlines flight. Yeah, that's a perfect example of the fuselage being pressurized at altitude. The pressure literally blew the center section of the roof out, and the plane was able to land. Because the main structure of the fuselage isn't around the top side of the fuselage. So what broke off was just basically the roof of like a roof
Yeah,
on a
the top,
car. It's not the structure of the fuselage, but they were able to land. But some people got sucked out because the seats broke out and the people weren't seat belted in. But same situation. But that shows you the force of pressure inside the cockpit. That if you get a big enough leak, it explodes.
Well, you've only got to drive your car, haven't you, up the road and open the window a little bit and put your hand out. You can feel the pressure, and that's just wind pressure. I know
That's
it's
just drag,
pressure, but it's a similar thing. It's a very similar thing.
Can I just interrupt you?
Yeah, sure.
I've got such a bad connection. I'm going to have to go because I can't hear hardly anything that's being said. I don't know if you can hear me. It's just so choppy, and everyone, more or less, you know.
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear right now.
Yeah, you sound clearer now.
What's wrong with this?
Yeah, you're sounding real clear right now.
What's wrong with it? Okay, well, we'll keep going then. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll stay.
Yeah.
Carry on talking.
Yeah, you sound fine right now.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, amazing. He's just about to leave and he sounds clear.
It's messed up, Karen. It's the internet, isn't it? They're messing with us.
It's the internet and the flat earthers being on YouTube. Could I just ask then? Trouble's been quite quiet. Oh, sorry. Have you not finished, Don? Carry on, Don. I'll ask in a minute.
No. Go ahead. I was just going to change the subject just a little bit, but go ahead.
Keep that thought for a moment. Trouble or Lev or Flat Earth Unity or Jay? Is there anything you'd like to say? Any questions about flying to Don?
I don't have any questions. I've made connections, so I'll wait.
Wait. You're just listening, Trouble. Okay. Lev?
Like vapor trails. When I was a kid and stuff, I remember asking like, "What are they?" and stuff kind of thing. Like, and I would always tell it's just water vapor. But if it's just water vapor, you know what I mean? It's got to be jet fuel as well, though, isn't it?
Sorry, Don. Carry on, Don.
The amount of vapor which goes across.
Yeah, if you understand liquid petroleum, liquid fuels of any kind, in my research of Stan Meyer's water-powered car, I've come to learn that the only substance in the universe, nature, that burns is hydrogen. Anything that we burn as a fuel source, or paper, wood, gasoline, diesel fuel, all contain hydrogen. I learned that if an item does not have hydrogen in its chemical makeup, it will not burn. So when you burn hydrogen has to have oxygen with it to burn, which we have 20% of in the atmosphere. So when you burn hydrogen, it links up with oxygen in the process, and the byproduct is water vapor. So every aircraft, every engine that burns anything, fuel source, puts out water byproduct. You can see it on your cars when you're driving down the road, car in front of you see water coming out the tailpipe all the time. That's the byproduct of combustion, of burning hydrogen. So any engine that burns, that runs on any fuel source, is burning hydrogen as a primary product. And then the hydrogen links up with the oxygen and it gives you water vapor. So at altitude, at those sub-freezing temperatures, that water vapor freezes and turns into crystals, and then hence you see the contrails. And then now today you have the theories of the chemtrails up there where they're spraying chemicals, which causes that stuff to linger for hours and hours instead of dissipating within a few seconds like we're used to seeing.
I agree with you, Don. So are you saying contrails are different from chemtrails?
Well, they're claiming chemtrails have the chemicals in them. So they're saying that it has to be in the fuel. But if it's in the fuel, knowing my knowledge of working on jet engines, every engine that burns any kind of fuel, especially modern day fuel injection, you have a fuel injector, and they have such tiny little orifices that they spray the fuel out. And the reason for the tiny orifices in any injector is that it comes out at high pressure and it atomizes to a real fine mist. One thing you may or may not know is that liquid fuel does not burn. Only fuel vapor burns. So when you're spraying this jet fuel into the engine, because that compressed air that's coming in through a compressor, as you compress air into smaller spaces, it heats up and gets hot and hot and hot, hotter and hotter. So as the fuel hits that hot air, it evaporates and turns into vapor, and the vapor is what burns. If you have like a little cup and you put a little gasoline in it and you light it, the gasoline's not burning, it's the fumes that are coming off the gas that burn. The only fumes will burn. Liquid fuel will not burn. It has to be atomized into very, very tiny particles before it will physically burn. And that's only because those tiny particles will evaporate fairly quickly when they're exposed to heat, and then they'll burn. And it's just a reaction that piles upon itself. But liquid fuels do not burn. It's only the vapor that fuel puts off that burns. So, but anyway, about the particles, if they're putting anything in the fuel, they would have to be like nano-sized particles, microparticles, like chemical weapons, chemical warfare, where you have to get that what's that powdered chemical that they were putting in I'm talking about the stuff that the white powder that people were sending in envelopes to chemical weapon. What was that?
I'll just say quickly, there's a message in the chat room from Harsh Truth Engineer, and he's saying, Karen, I was speaking to an airline pilot, and he said that it's the unused escaped jet fuel that freezes. And then he says, which is another confusion in itself. None of them agree.
No, it's not. It's not jet fuel. It's the condensation contrails of an aircraft are water vapor freezing. It's just freezing crystals. It's water that's crystallizing because it's so cold. That's all a contrail is. But chemtrails is where they're possibly putting the beryllium and other aluminum particles in the fuel, and then it's burnt through the engine, goes out the exhaust, and then seeds the air with the chemicals. But in theory, in actuality, all fuels products, whether it's gasoline, jet fuels, whatever, are chemicals. They're all chemicals. So you can actually say calling them chemtrails is not too far and fetched. They are chemicals. They are being trailed. They are making trails, so they are technically chemical trails, even though there's water vapor. But there's also byproducts. Diesel fuels. There's a lot of chemicals in a kerosene and jet fuel. So literally, technically, it is a chemtrail because there are a lot of byproducts that come out of that. It doesn't all burn up in the process. There's always byproducts, chemical byproducts. But they're saying that they're physically adding chemicals, and the only way they can do it is they have to put it in the jet fuel. And if they're putting it in jet fuel, it has to be small enough that it's not going to plug up and cause any problems with the mechanical pumping systems of the fuel system in the plane. It'd have to be nano-sized particles, microscopic. Yeah. Otherwise, jet fuel nozzles would plug up and the planes would crash and burn, and then there'd be a serious investigation. Then they would find out that, hey, what is this in the fuel?
I don't think the passenger planes.
I've just got a bit of adage. So I just got a bit of adage here from Harsh Truth. He's just put something else in. He says water vapor, frozen particles have more density than air. Anyway, so how does that float in the air if it's thinner and less dense at 30,000 feet?
I can answer that because, Don, I was going to say, back in the 70s, contrails would dissipate after like a few seconds, wouldn't they? But today, chemtrails, what I call chemtrails, not contrails, chemtrails, they last for hours and hours, and they spread out and make noose-like shaped clouds in the sky.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think there is something in, whether it's in the fuel, whether it's in a separate tank, I don't know. But they're definitely spraying something.
airports, I used to work after I got out of the service. I worked at a local, what we called FBO, fixed base operators. And what we did is they had charter planes. You could rent planes and rent a plane and have them take you somewhere, anywhere, and bring you back. But I also worked on the flight line where we fueled airplanes. And I used to have fuel, used to be what a company called US Air over here where I'm from. I used to go over there and take the tanker truck over there, hook it to the bottom of the wing, underneath the wing, open the valves, and then pump in so many gallons of jet fuel in the plane. So I used to do that for a little bit. So I understand how the jet fuel works. But if that's the case, you can go to pretty much any airport and you can buy jet fuel yourself. Guys will go that have the radio controlled jet model airplanes. They go to the airport and they buy jet fuel to fly in their little model airplanes. And if you can go to these airports where you suspect that they're doing this or putting these chemicals in there, you could probably go and buy a gallon of jet fuel, take it somewhere and have it analyzed and see if they can find the chemicals in it. That would be the easiest thing to do. If you could get a sample of the fuel you think is doing the chemtrail in it.
I don't
If
think
they got a special lot,
I think
because I don't believe they're pumping anything into additional tanks somewhere and then spraying it out. It'd have to be in the fuel itself.
Can I say, Don, that when I've seen chemtrails in sky and they look a lot lower, and then I sometimes see like an airplane really high, and you can see its contrail, and it's significantly different because it is dissipating, you know. So I can only assume that the chemtrails are done by it's not by passenger planes. You know, I kind of think it's a different thing. So you got your contrails, which is why I was asking, like, I kind of thought, is there any evidence that you can see with your eyes, kind of thing, what proof that what a contrail is, whether it's just water vapor or is it like the gasoline vapor and stuff like that? Because when you see like an exhaust from the car, you see like blue fumes coming out and stuff like that. Sometimes there's something wrong with engine and it's quite thick when it comes out or whatever, you know, quite smoky and stuff, like oil burning or whatever and that. And I kind of thought,
can I just add to that, by the way, Lev, that Enslaved by No Media says the same thing, what you've just said, that the passenger planes, the contrails will go, whatever they're called, will go really quickly, but the chemtrail ones,
you see
they're not
passenger planes. So it's the weather conditions are, you know, you expect it to be colder higher, but you know the chemtrails are lower. So
I can add to that too as well, because being a pilot and obviously being aware of the air charts and the airspace, I can say that I've seen chemtrails sprayed in an area above my house which doesn't have a flight lane. So I'm thinking to myself, these are different aircraft that are not complying with normal aviation law. And they're purposely up there.
I'd like to add when y'all get a moment.
And that doesn't make sense for airports.
What was that horrible noise?
Somebody was trying to call me. I'm on my phone.
Oh, it's probably the CIA.
Yeah, but as far as your question, chemtrails, contrails, yeah, there's probably most of the commercial airlines aren't putting out chemtrails. Some people believe, from what little I've looked at, that it's military flights posing as commercial flights that are doing the heavy spraying. So I've really never looked into it all that much. I haven't really gone that far, but I've looked at some to see. But there's it could be either way. If they did it,
all they do is put chemicals up in the air and block the sun out.
Yeah, they've got patents on all that theory of technology for controlling weather. So they've had patents for years on doing just what they claim are doing now. So, but I think when we started this conversation that the cold weather's coming regardless of what they're doing, if they are spraying or not. But a lot of the chemtrails that people see are over the cities, the big cities and that, but that's where the heaviest concentration of air traffic is as well. But yeah, the I don't know if it's just due to the overabundance of aircraft flying today than it was back in the 70s. There's just so much more of it that it's more evident now than before. But from some of the stuff I have watched, there seems to be people that are really serious investigators into the chemtrails, and they honestly full believe that they've tested, they've found the materials, that there is some spraying of some sort going on somewhere.
Which can't be very good for us.
Nothing's good for us if they're trying to manipulate something.
They're chucking out fuel, aren't they, before they land? That's going into the air. And these chemtrails are in the air.
No, you don't dump the fuel out, only if you have an emergency and you can't land at the weight that you're carrying.
Right,
Generally,
okay.
an aircraft, you will only put in enough fuel to get you to your destination, because a lighter aircraft is going to be more fuel efficient, use less fuel. The more weight on it, the more it's going to burn to get you there. So they won't fill an airplane. If you're just going to fly, 1,000 miles, they're not going to top the airplane off if they only need a quarter of a load of fuel. So they'll only put in what they need, so they still have at least that 30 minutes of fuel required by the FAA before you land. But yeah, you don't fill them all the time, and then you're not dumping fuel if it's not needed. You can land with a certain amount of fuel on board, but if you have a plane that's fully loaded, full to the gild with people, passengers, luggage and everything, and you're gonna be flying 13 hours, and you have to top the plane off to get there, and you take off and you get in the air, next thing you know, you got an engine problem, you got to turn around and come back, then they have to dump the fuel. But they'll be up at a certain altitude that they claim that when it's sprayed out, it dissipates and floats down over the oceans or whatever, but where it's not going to cause any problem. That's what they claim to do. But that's you only dump it when you have an emergency situation. When you're landing normally, you're not dumping any fuel. That's a waste of money.
I want to elaborate on that. I've flown gliders, and they don't have fuel. They don't even have an engine. They're towed up by an airplane or on a winch, and you put water in the wings. They put water in the wings to make them heavier, so you've got extra weight. I don't know why they do it, but you can dump that water and then get a better glide ratio later if you get stuck, if you lose the thermal or you lose your lift, so you can make it lighter. And that happens in gliding.
Yeah, when I was building my airplane, this Corsair that I'm working on now, I changed the airfoil shape on the wing, because the airfoil design on the wing was causing, it had some bad stall characteristics to it. So I wanted to put something on that was more gentle and safer flying. So in my research of airfoils and wing designs, I found out that an aircraft that's heavier can actually fly at a much faster speed. A heavier plane can achieve a greater airspeed. And then like you're saying, by dumping the water out of the glider, it makes it nice and light, and you can come in at a much slower speed. So I imagine the water, especially in a competition glider, they might do that to gain an edge on speed. You want to get a faster flight up, but a heavier airplane has a potential flying at a faster speed than a lighter aircraft, with everything being the same, just a difference in weight. It was surprising to see that, but when I was running through the calculators and the curve charts, a heavier airplane has a much higher airspeed potential before you could run into a never exceed speed or damage the airplane from overloading it. But a lighter plane won't fly as fast as a heavier plane.
Wow.
It seems backwards, but that's the way it calculates out on the charts.
Something else I'd like to ask then, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, Don, but why is it when you watch planes take off and they always seem to veer to the right?
That's the flight patterns of the airport. Every airport has a right-hand or left-handed flight pattern. Here in the United States, prominently they're right-hand. Sometimes you can't do a right-hand pattern because of geography, hills, terrain, antennas, power poles or something's in the way that you can't turn right. But those are general rules. Every aircraft, when you look them up in a chart, will have a pattern, altitude, and direction that you would fly. So you take off and you'll do a right pattern or you'll do a left pattern. That's standard aviation stuff there.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's
you can
nothing to
look
do with
that
the
up
weight
in
on
any
the
chart.
plane. They're actually doing that on
it's-
purpose.
Yeah, because it's like, say, a right-hand pattern will take you away from a high population area. So if you're taking off and you have a problem and you can't make it back to the field, you're not going to crash into a high concentrated neighborhood.
Hmm. Thanks for that. Jay's been waiting there. Jay, what is it you wanted to add, by the way?
Who's she? Sorry, I was talking to myself.
That's a sign of mad.
I've not seen her
That's a
before.
sign of mad. Who's that?
It was me talking, sorry. I was just talking to myself, but I couldn't remember who Trouble was.
Trouble. Trouble about.
Yeah, that's it, Trouble About.
That's me. I'm
Jay?
here. You hear me?
Yeah, hi
Yeah.
there.
Hi. How are you guys?
I'm fine, thank you. We've concluded that aircraft do not run on compressed air. And if they did, all the cars would, and the ships and that. And remember that them big container ships that carry thousands and thousands of containers, and the 20-foot containers weigh 2 tons empty before they're filled up with products. The 40-foot containers weigh 4 tons, and they're on a ship in the water.
Well,
Why doesn't it sink? Because of the weight. I know.
I hear everything.
I know it's hard to understand when you think about the numbers. But
if we've done the bit where they could be lying to us about how high these planes are flying and how fast they're going.
They do fly at the heights they say. All aircraft fly at the heights they say. When you get these guys with their P900s that can't even focus, and they zoom in on an aircraft that could, and they even said it's going into the airport. It's going to be on the finals maybe, or downwind leg, 1,000 foot, 2,000 foot maybe, above the ground. You know, if you film an aircraft that's en route, that could be at 6 miles up, 36,000 feet, whatever, then fair enough. I saw that video, and they compared a little Cessna, a little 2-seat Cessna, with a big commercial aircraft, and the Cessna was much lower. They said, "This looks bigger." Of course, it looks bigger. It's lower. It's like putting a pig next to an elephant. The pig's going to look bigger if it's closer.
We've been enslaved by No Media. He puts videos out every day.
I've never
puts
seen
videos
him.
out.
No, I don't. Sorry, never seen him.
Yeah, he's got a P900 camera, and he takes pictures, videos when planes are taking off at like 10 miles away, and then he has videos of airplanes flying overhead at cruising altitudes in the 30,000 feet, and he's able to zoom in on the aircraft at altitude and read the end numbers on the wings, so he can tell exactly what airplane, what flight it is. And then same thing with the planes landing and taking off. But he seems to be able to get a bigger image of the plane overhead than he can with an airplane taking off at, say, 10 miles away. It's kind of interesting. I mean, like I say, if you could go out a certain amount,
we'll do that test.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's trying to say, is they're not flying as high as they are because he's able to zoom in a lot closer when they're up in the air than they are taking off from the ground. They seem farther away on the ground than they do in the air, and they're supposedly at about the same distance away, is what he's saying.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the skies. Have you seen the airplanes that freeze me?
Sorry, Trouble. Speak into the microphone a bit more.
I was going to say, there's a lot of sus stuff going around in the air. Have you seen the airplanes that just are frozen in midair?
Yeah, what about those then, Don? The ones that hover, the big jetliners which hover, and people keep filming them. And there was actually a passenger on the plane, filming the plane almost, well, I can't say it was completely stationary, but they're like hovering. They're going so slow, it's like hovering. And she was filming it, and I put arrows on it, and you could see that the plane was moving.
Yeah, I saw some of yours. Some of the things, if you're in the flight path of the plane, you're sitting out in the ground. Like I sit in a car and I'll watch airplanes come into the local airport, and they're on what they call a glide slope. It's a certain degree, like a 5-degree angle of attack that they're coming in for a landing. And when you're right out in front of the plane and it's coming in, it doesn't look like it's moving for the longest time because it's literally coming right at you. Over time, then you'll finally see it get bigger and bigger. But some of that can be due to perspective. Some of the other stuff, like the air shows where the plane's coming in, where you posted the video showing that plane, that airliner flying really, really slow, and then it powers up and then climbs out real steep. Again, that's an air show maneuver where he's in what is referred to as slow flight. You can take an airplane and slow it way, way down. I remember doing it in Cessna 150s. You put the flaps down. It's amazing how much power it takes to make an airplane fly slow. To make an airplane fly really fast, it takes a lot of power. To make an airplane fly really slow, it takes a lot of power, because a slow flight, you're putting the flaps way down like you're coming for a landing, and you're trying to keep the airplane from sinking. In order to do that, you have to increase the power to maintain your altitude, or the plane will sink. That's the whole idea with the flaps, is to make the plane sink at a faster rate but not speed up. So when you're practicing slow flight, the airplane's literally at full throttle and you're going like 30 mile an hour and you're not going anywhere. But as soon as you start raising the flaps, then the plane will start taking off again. So it's possible when they're doing air shows. That's just part of the show, and it's just showing you that a plane can do that. But when they're flying and with loaded passengers, they won't do that kind of maneuver because it's dangerous for one. But as far as some of the other flow flight footages, some of it can be due to perspective. If you got a high wind, 100-mile-an-hour wind, and the plane only flies 200 mile an hour, it's only going to be going half as fast as it normally would without the headwind. So there's a lot of variables that can affect that. And then perspective, what angle you're seeing it at. Now, if you're seeing it directly side on from left or right side and it's flying real slow close to you, then that's something they're doing intentionally.
Don, you're an autogyro pilot, sorry.
Yes.
So if your stall speed is like 15 miles an hour and you're coming into land in a 20-mile-an-hour headwind, technically you could fly backwards over the ground, couldn't you?
Oh yeah, I fly backwards. I'll fly that thing, 30, 40 mile an hour winds, and I can slow it right down to a 0 airspeed. Well, I'll be reading the wind, but yeah, I've made mine fly backwards, go backwards. The winds push me backwards.
Yeah, I've done
autogyros. Yeah, autogyros. They don't stall. They don't stall. They sink, but they don't stall.
I've seen them land. I've seen autogyros land on something like an A4 sheet paper on the airfield.
Oh yeah, when I come in and land, when my wheels touch down, I don't move. They just come right in and set right down. Especially if you got a 5-10 mile an hour headwind, yeah, you can just come right in and set it right down where you want to land. You can literally put it down in a small parking lot. Your front yard. There's with the right conditions.
They normally fly in conditions that are suitable for the aircraft. And if it's 15 mile an hour wind, it's got a max airspeed, a minimum airspeed of 15. And you can come in and you can land on the spot. Right.
Yeah, see, I fly the gyrocopter when nobody else will fly an airplane, whether it's an ultralight or a Cessna or something like that. People won't fly because it's too windy.
Strong winds, can't you?
Yeah, the gyrocopter, that's all they fly by is wind, so they love the wind. I've been out in 30, 40 mile an hour winds with my gyrocopter, and it loves it, absolutely loves it.
I've got a video where I tried to land in a 26 knot wind. It was gusting 18 to 26 knot wind. And that was hard work. And I had to go around 3 times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But when you got a rotating wing, that rotor blade up there, that's how it flies. It's auto rotation the whole time, and the more the wind, the better. It's happy. But it's just times where they're hard to bring down because it just wants to stay in the air, just like your plane would want to. Doesn't want to land.
Yeah, I've actually been up. I remember a few years ago, I hit this jet wind at 3,000 feet. Now I had like a ground speed of over 100 miles an hour. In my old school microlight, I had a maximum speed of like 55 because it was a massive jet wind.
Yeah, you're not physically cutting through the air at 100 mile an hour. You're going across the ground 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, the ground speed was that speed. And
right.
This was before GPS, and I came out and I thought, I don't know where I am. It took me like 15 minutes to work out where I was before I could fly back.
A friend of mine was telling me about he was in the Air Force and he was stationed down in Texas, out in the middle of nowhere, by a oil refinery place, and he said it was the only thing in sight for miles and miles and miles. But he said a guy had a Piper Cub out there, and he got caught in a 200 mile an hour jet stream with this Piper Cub that flies, like 50 miles per hour. He said he was doing a ground speed of almost 300 miles an hour. He couldn't believe it in a Piper Cub, but he's still literally only going 50, 60 mile an hour through the air.
Yeah, but over the ground, over the ground, that's 300.
Yeah, he had a tailwind. Yeah.
So he's not going to get back, or he
no, he would never. Yeah, if he tried to fly into the wind, it would be blowing him back faster than he was going forward.
That's weird.
Yeah.
But the commercial aircraft go up to the high levels because of the jet winds as well. Not because of the compressed air that they run on, some people think. They use jet winds, don't they?
Yeah, they're designed to fly at those altitudes. That's where they're the most efficient. You got thin air, so the airplane cuts through the air much easier. It's less resistance on the motion of the plane through the air. So it's takes less power, so you can cover greater distance.
Can we agree there are wind speeds of over 300 miles an hour up at those heights?
Yeah, the jet stream that flows through the United States comes down through Alaska, cuts down into the States and back out the East Coast. Yeah, their average speed's probably almost 200 mile an hour.
200? I thought it's 300.
Yeah, they can get up to 300. Yes, they can. Rarely, but
the reason they fly that height, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll when you're flying from west to east, yeah, you want to get up there. When you're flying from east to west, you want to stay below it or above it, because you don't want to fly into it.
So that is the reason why commercial aircraft, have chosen that level of like 6 miles, maybe, because of strong winds.
Yeah, there's always different levels of winds too. Winds aloft.
It changes all the time. Yeah, every day it changes.
Yeah, the jet streams can be at 30,000 today, 40,000 tomorrow, or 25,000 the next day. It varies, and it moves north and south as well. It's constantly moving.
Oh, I saw a question the other day. Chemtrails. What's the lowest chemtrail do you believe could be produced? The lowest height. Some people say it's 1,000 feet, but I know it's complete bollocks.
I've never seen any. I've never seen a trail. The only trails I've ever seen are high altitude that are probably in excess of 20,000 feet. I've never, but I don't live near any great big cities. But to get the kind of, even if there are chemicals, it still has to be a contrail based phenomena, but with chemicals in it.
Yeah,
that causes it to linger.
I worked it out based on, my 30 years of flying, and I've come to the conclusion that it can't be below 15,000 feet, and that's a conservative estimate. Maybe 20.
Yeah, well, there's the problem of you got to be at a certain temperature to get any kind of contrail to start anyway, whether it's a chemical trail or a typical vapor contrail. It has to be at a given temperature to form. So you're just not going to see those temperatures at a low altitude.
I'm gonna backfire on you now and say, what about these supersonic jets that can fly above the sea at 15 feet and make that big cloud
vapor
behind the
trail.
aircraft, vapor trail.
That's a vapor trail. That's a compression.
How does that work?
That's a compression phenomenon. That's the air pressure going over the wings being compressed, and it's causing the moisture to compress and condense and cause that fog-looking, smoke-looking trail. But you notice that it's instantly gone by the time it's at the back of the wing. It doesn't. Yeah, it's only right there. It's in a high compression area of the airflow over the airfoil.
You can actually see a waveform, can't you? If you slow the
shock waves.
Shock
waves. Right.
I'm pleased.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to ask that, but I wanted to ask.
Yeah, that's a whole different phenomena there. That's a compression factor.
I remember when I was 12 years old, I went to France on a school trip, and Concorde flew over our boat that went to France, and we heard the shock waves from it. It flew over. Boom, boom.
Are you talking a sonic boom?
Sonic boom, yeah, sonic boom, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, here in the States, you're not allowed to break the speed of sound over land. They can only do it over water. So I don't know how it is around the world, but if they do it, they're breaking the law. They're breaking FAA rules.
Yeah, this was over the English Channel going to France in the boat.
Yeah, they could probably do it there. Yeah, it's possible. You're just not allowed to do it.
I experienced it,
Yeah.
so I know it happened.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was probably legal because it's over water.
285 miles an hour. You're not allowed to fly below a certain height. I can't remember what it is because I don't fly that far. So.
Yeah, when most airports here in the States, you have a 250 mile per hour speed limit when you get into the controlled airspace around airports. That's the maximum speed, like 250.
Yeah. This is brilliant.
That sonic boom, it's very loud. When I lived in Israel, I experienced it many times because the fighter jet pilots, they practice low-level flying, and these F-16s that flew over, kaboom, it's loud.
Yeah, sonic booms will blow out windows in buildings if they're low enough.
I've seen them rip the tops of tree branches off. No, only like small branches, not big branches. It's like shrubs and that off the top of the trees.
This was out in the Negev desert.
Yeah, if they're flying low enough over ground, even if they're not doing speed of sound, you can have the shock waves, damage trees and stuff like that. Just from the pressure.
Wow.
That's a pressure problem there. The differential in pressure of the aircraft moving through the air causes a pressure shock wave. But you don't hear a sonic boom because you're not breaking the sound barrier. It's like standing on the side of the road when a semi goes by. You feel that blast of air. You get the same effect out of an airplane. It's a pressure wave.
Sound good to me?
Okay. The other thing I was going to mention, just what kept me from joining right at the start of this was I was just finished up watching that Convex Earth documentary that just released today.
Yeah,
Did anyone check that out? That out? That was good. That was good.
What's your conclusion on it, Don? That
the water's flat and the Earth is flat.
Well, water has to be flat, doesn't it? It can't be anything else.
Yeah. The reason they call it convex Earth is because the land has terrain to it. It goes up, you start at the sea level, the shoreline, and the terrain goes up high to mountains and then comes back down to shoreline. So that's what they call convex Earth. But the rest of it, the water is flat. They're flat earthers.
You were talking about that a bit just before we came on air, weren't you, Skyfly?
Yes, I did. Yes, very interesting because like on Beyond the Imaginary Curve, he constantly repeats the fact that water has to be flat. and it has to be flat. Obviously, moving water might have curve to it, but on what scale? And I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah. Water on every scale is flat, whether it's in a glass of water, a swimming pool, a lake, or an ocean, it's flat.
Is this convex Earth, is that different to the concave Earth with Stephen Lord Christ or whoever it is?
It's not Stephen Lloyd Christ.
Okay. I haven't watched it
yeah,
yet. I saw it come up last night, but then I went to bed.
Convex is round, like a spherical Earth. Convex, that's a sphere. Convex is a ball, and concave is a dish. So yeah, they're just calling it convex because land mass, the total of the land, rises up and falls down. So it's convexed in shape. It's got height to it, whereas water is flat and level. So they call it convex Earth, which kind of makes you everyone was kind of weary on what they were actually going to come out and say, and turns out they just coming out and saying that it's flat. The water's flat, but the Earth has some terrain to it. Basically, it's got height. It's an hour and a half long. It was a good documentary, and the thing was they did sight tests, they did laser tests, they did radio wave tests. They did tests with measuring building heights and distances apart, and found out that the buildings are parallel when they shouldn't be parallel over long distances. So they did several tests to show that everything came out level, flat.
So they're flat earthers, but they're coming up with a new name.
This whole thing happened over a 7-year span. They've been researching this for 7 years. So they've been doing it way longer before this whole flat Earth movement kicked in, about 3 years ago. So they've been on the ball for 4 years prior.
Well, I like the inside out version where the stars are like outside they're in. So I guess that could be a part. Yeah, it's getting really interesting with these different things.
Very quiet.
Yeah, so talk up just a little bit there.
That's my microphone moving.
Trouble.
Shout.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
I'll wake up my whole house if I do that.
That's okay.
Oh, she has joined us early. It's quite early in Australia, isn't it?
G'day.
Well, actually, it's 10 to 9 in the morning now, so it's getting a bit later.
Getting a bit more reasonable.
Yes.
Just asking, Jay, are you there? Jay?
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
what did you want to add then about, because obviously we're talking about aeroplanes and stuff today. Well, that's what we've been talking about. So what is it that you can add to this aeroplane bit?
Well, thank you very much for all the information. So, but before I start, I'm into etymology and metaphors of the body. So what I'm going to do right now is just go to a thing I found before I start talking so you can understand how I think. So, all right, I'm going to share my screen. Can we all see this right here? Okay, so your clavicle bone.
Yeah.
You're good?
I can't see it on the panel at the moment. I only see the icons, but it's probably showing up on the live stream.
Can someone else confirm?
I'm just going to do it.
I see get your maximum refund.
I
can't see.
Yeah.
Can't see. Can you see cumulus and clavicle, please?
Yeah.
Okay, so cumulus relates to a cloud.
And
your clavicle. Pardon me, sir?
I can see stratocolumus as well.
Yes, sir. And it relates to your. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sir. What are you saying?
I can read the words. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to dance with you. So your cumulus, the clavicle relates to the cumulus energy. So I've made several connections. I'm just going to read them off so I don't go too long. So we said luggage. We have emotional baggage in our mind. We live in a sagittal plane. So when you're speaking about planes in astrology, I'm into that very much. There is what exists, the sagittal plane on every body. Sagittal relates to Sagittarius, which is where your horsepower for your cars come from. Someone asked about feet and why we measure things in feet. Well, we have 6 feet deep. We have the sole of the foot. We have Pisces is the feet. You have a sole in your foot. So if I'm trying to confuse somebody about their demented dimensions with lies possibly, it would be important that I would use the foot, which relates to your body as the temple. Pedagogy, if I may say, means to protect your feet. Ped is the foot. Goj means to protect your footage or your foundation metaphorically. We have the Lorraine cross for the Templar Knights. Every plane has the shape of this cross or the cross of Christianity. When I stand like this with my hands to the side, I often do it in my ballet classes. I ask my dancers, what famous symbol do you see here? And they say the cross, because your body literally is one with the Nordic cross of the earth. Another awesome connection I had for a flat earth connection is our paper planes. Paper is flat. And when we are children, we create the paper plane, which makes a 3-dimensional shape from something very flat, which I'm thinking, probably comes from the creators and what they do is which they give us a flat place and they give us a dome or dimensions. So in dance today, I had an awesome connection. We do things with our feet in dance called doming. I'm going to say that one more time. Doming of your foot. If you are flat-footed and you don't have arches, you have metatarsals. Meta means the earth. Your metatarsals need to hold themselves in a dome-like structure so you don't hurt your spine, your sacrum, which I suffered from because in ballet, all they care about is how fast you turn, how strong your feet point, but they don't teach you how to dome. Let me say it again, to dome the foot, which is what all feet are aligned on a flat place, and we have the actual act of doming. So I find that very interesting. Once again, we have obesity in this world. This is not judgmental at all. I am into physical health. There are chemtrails poisoning us because they have sodium fluoride in our water. Why? Is it in our toothpaste that our government is making legal, like Crest and Colgate has sodium fluoride, and they try to say, oh, a little bit is okay. I don't need a little bit of poison in my temple, in which I'm trying to explain is what you are. I'm almost done, pardon me. I heard nose, the nose of the plane. We have a nose in our body. I heard the tail, beautiful metaphors. We have a tail, my people. Fuel, we pass gas, my people. Fuel in the engine. Well, when we pass the gas, that is the same thing. We're in a sagittal plane. My man said G-force. We have a G spot. There's nothing gross about it. It's actually beautiful. There are points in our body that relates to the actions of the plane. And then very lastly, I want to talk about a bone. It is called the crista galli. Look it up right now. It is so important because that crista galli explains to you that your brain is a metaphor of many things. And I'm going to share my screen and show that this is a very important thing to know in terms of flight and what flight means. So here we go with the crista galli. Thank you all for your patience, by the way. So when I scroll down to this thing, you will see the crista galli. It's a bone in your skull, and it simply relates to the rooster's comb or the crest. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I'm trying to show you is that your body is designed to fly. Your body is the cloud. We are cumulus. We are an accumulation of the wings. We have shoulder blades. And then they made a sword. After that, my phalanges, once again, literally means the military. And that industrial complex, I have a complexion. That military industrial complex is poisoning me, is bombing things with my tax money, right? So what is flying to me, right? When I'm meditating, when I breathe, I take all my energy to my cloud. Beautiful, my cloud, my clavicle, right? I go even further to my crista galli. What do you think my brain is doing? It's flying in the ethers. So it's beautiful. I just wanted to dance with you all in a different way, just to say I appreciate your information. I appreciate the connections you're all talking about, how far away planes are. I'm not familiar with the lingo, so I'm learning from you and your terminology. It's wonderful. So metaphorically, I just want us to all know, I grew up in Jamaica Plains in Boston. Jamaica plane, right? Like the idea of flying is just an embodiment of you and what you do when you meditate. When you're walking, you're flying, you're in the ether. We're always flying. The idea of spinning, it does happen. It's not the earth spinning. What's spinning is the ether. The stars move in a way that get things going, and they breathe into our dome. And then we begin to manifest on the plane. I yield the floor.
Thanks for that, Jay.
Yeah, that's some
An
good
honor,
stuff
really.
there.
Thank you, man. And I really appreciate it, seriously, because Karen does an amazing job bringing in diverse opinions. Like we had yoga the other day. I didn't know the mudras, and I'm into meditation. I didn't know that. You know, we have Thrive and Survive, gives us stuff about the Trump, and I don't follow current events a lot, and here you are. So I'm just honored. Like there's a lot that we can still connect with, even if the information is a bit like just different. You know what I mean?
Well, Sun and Moon is we the people.
We the people.
We're people.
That's right.
We the people.
And I encourage chat room, anyone, go to etymology, like me, go to etymology and you will be your own superhero. You are a plane. Your thalamus, it means a vault, for God's sake. So when I'm shocking you with if I'm a police officer and then I'm shocking you and that comes from you, man. You are the voltage. You are the bank. You have a memory bank. The Templar Knights, they took all these symbols of earth and the plane that we live on, and they went and killed people. With that cross, that is your body. M&M's, and McDonald's chose it as an M on a stick. That would be your middle body and your two arms. They think they're slick. I see it because I care about children and I care about adults and my old people. We should not be teased anymore with our body parts. Thank you very much. Don't need your poison no more. I need wisdom. I yield the floor. Sorry, my friend. Please talk.
I would like to say,
yes,
very good. Thank you. You are amazing. But looking back at compressed air running aircraft is complete nonsense. And the guy that instigated that is now reporting that Formula 1 F cars run on compressed air as well. He's saying there's no space for the tank. Apparently they hold 100 litres of fuel. And he can't see where the tanks could be. But they have belly tanks because they have a low centre of gravity. So it's below where he can see. In any schematic drawings you might find of racing cars, F1 racing cars. The same guy that instigated that aircraft run on compressed air now believes that Formula 1 F cars run on compressed air because he's got a boiler in his house that's 110 litres, and it does have an insulation over it, which makes it like almost twice as big, not twice as big, but much bigger. And he thinks, how can that fit in there? The guys, the same guy posted in the video that it should get warmer, the closer you get to the sun. But he doesn't realize the sun doesn't heat air. The sun doesn't heat air. So if you go up 10,000 feet, you're not going to get warmer because there's nothing for the sun to heat.
Yeah, it's radiant heat.
Anyway, that's enough of my ranting.
The bit about the sun I understand, but I think he's just trying to say, where are these big tanks in this car?
It doesn't have big tanks, Karen, because they don't need big tanks. They've got a tank that holds the 100 litres that they say it holds. And it's a very small belly tank that's very close to the ground that goes along the bottom of the Formula 1 car. You know, we'll have to buy one. Well, not buy one.
Yeah, it's not much more than what's your cars over there hold for fuel capacities.
But normal cars in the UK hold about between 40 and 60 litres, depending on what car you got. So it's a little bit more than that.
So they're running, you say about 100 liters on a Formula 1?
That's what they say.
double
the Formula One cars now can't refuel during laps. They have to have the full fuel on board before they start the race. And they have
Did you hear? I don't know if this is true or not, because I say I don't. Oh, Jay, have you got to go then, Jay? Jay. He's just sent me a message. Jay. Oh,
Yes.
well, he says
yes,
he's got to
pardon
run.
me. Can you hear me? I gotta run. Yeah, I gotta run to teach again. But I just wanted to say thank you for this moment to have a panel with all of you. Can I say we're dancers, or am I ruining a flow before we go? Is that possible?
No, you can say that. It wouldn't be the same if you were on and you didn't say that. I'd be a bit upset if you.
Okay, so for those who are new to this, before I leave, I always ask us to say that we're dancers, because for me, dancing as a dance teacher, dance is not just about, it's not about technique. It's about the heartbeat is a dance. So on 3, we just say we're dancers. So 1, 2, 3. We are dancers.
Thank you,
Thanks
Jay.
again.
Much love, Jay.
Much love, Karen.
It's a great guy.
Thank you.
Excellent. Later, Jay.
Yeah, he's a very clever guy.
I like him.
Yeah, he's a wealth
and the
of
bit about
information.
dancing, the bit about dancing is that we're free. That's what I think it also means when we say we're dancers. We're free.
Yeah, it's like being at the party, isn't it? At the end of the disco, like the disco, you're at a disco, and it's near the end, and they're putting the smoochy ones on, and it's all coming together, and everyone's happy.
And also, we don't do much dancing anymore, do we? That's another point. Although he's a ballet instructor, but generally people don't dance. There are people who dance, but Western people don't dance that much, do they? You know, it's culture things. Like if you're Turkish, you want to do. They do all their dancing. They've kept it. But a lot of us haven't. We don't dance. We don't do nothing. So that's what that's about, I think. When was the last time you danced, Brian?
Me, I dance all the time. Last time I went to a nightclub was probably 7 years ago, and that's the last time I danced at a nightclub. But I've been to like family weddings and other meetings that we've had where they've got like bands or disco or whatever, and I've danced on the dance floor. But I used to dance all the time when I was young. Well,
yeah, like when I was younger, yeah. Same thing.
When you get older,
what about you, Don? When was the last time you danced?
Who was you talking to?
Yeah, you. When was the last time you did some actual dancing?
Me? Oh man, I can't even remember. I had 2 left feet, so I'm not much of a dancer. I might wiggle and jiggle around listening to the radio at work, but I don't know if people would call it dancing.
Okay, I'm going to ask that question. Lev, when was the last time you danced?
It's not very often. If I'm drunk and
Drunk.
a function party, you know what I mean, and stuff like. And I don't know. I've danced at them kind of places and stuff like. If there's a buffet as well.
You've got to be drunk to dance, though.
I suppose so. It's not often I drink either, so it's not often I dance when I drink either.
Okay, I'm going to ask Flat Earth Unity. Josh, are you there? He's got kids. I don't know if he's there. He'll come back. Trouble. When was the last time you danced?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I dance every day when I put music on. I can't help myself. But I went line dancing last year, and that near killed me. I couldn't keep up with them after half an hour. My legs were ready to drop off. And I go to yoga every week, but it's obviously not fitness. These women, like, they're a lot older than me, and they could move their feet and heel and toe and heel and toe. And yeah, after like an hour, I couldn't heel and toe at all. I could barely drag my legs across the room.
Has anybody ever tried to do that tea party dancing? You know, when they've got their feet almost touching and they shimmy across the floor. That is just almost impossible to do. I reckon that kind of dancing saved marriages because you've got to be so in sync with each other. Do you know which one I mean? When their feet are moving almost together on the floor. Call it tea. Pardon?
Oh, I haven't seen that. I don't know that one.
It's just the way they go 1, 2, 3, 1. Their feet are moving like it's almost impossible to do. That's what I think. You need
1, 2,
masses
3,
of
that would
practice.
be a waltz.
Yeah. I don't know if Patricia, are you there? Patricia.
It's a
maybe
lovely
she's gone.
dance for a moon dance. Night, sorry.
Anyway, you two, Don and Skyfly, you're dancing in the sky, aren't you?
Yeah, we go flying. We do aerobatics. Well, I don't think Don does aerobatics, but I've done aerobatics.
He's a daredevil, is Don.
Yeah, I never even got my gyrocopter out last year. I just flew my fixed wing airplane around and worked on the Corsair project, but didn't do much gyro flying last year.
Mine's gone downhill for
Imagine
2
you
years.
two together flying around in the sky.
I used to go to Scotland, France, everywhere. Recently, it's gone downhill.
Is that since you've had your accident?
No,
sorry, Don.
That was years ago. No, it's in the last few years, just due to working and doing other stuff and shit. I call it shit because I don't know what it is. Just things that.
Yeah, none of us like working anymore, do we? None of us. Anybody in the chat room who likes to stop working, or now you've understood what we're living in more? Who likes working? Oh, who just dropped off then? Patricia.
Patricia's gone.
Yeah.
I haven't worked in 6 years and I miss it. I don't miss working, but I miss doing stuff and being useful and being out there.
Look at the time.
Yeah, but you do that, though, don't you, Trouble? Because you take loads of pictures. The moon and things.
I don't leave my house very often. I haven't much in the last 6 years. Because buses aren't quite as friendly as people think they are. Where I am, they don't run on a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon. I've just got an electric bike, so I get out a little bit further. I just sit here wondering what the world, watching it go around, go by.
Is that partly because of what's happened to you, Trouble?
Yeah, because of the strokes, because I can't see. And I had no memory for a long time, so it's taken a lot of time to get back. Even just understanding what's going on around me. And I've never been blind before or half blind, so I have no idea how to get food to the house. That's a big struggle. It's been raining all this week, so I haven't been able to get out. So it's been really depressing. So I just take lots of photos. And because I lost sight memory as well, so I couldn't picture things that people were talking about, so I spend a lot of time using images. And since I can take photos, I can blow them up on my computer and I can really see what's going on. So when I first woke up, if I looked at the moon, it was shattered in about 50 pieces. So then it went down to 2 side-by-side overlapping, and now it's just 1, but I can only see a quarter of the edge at a time. That's why I've got this thing for the moon. And I've taken so many photos of it.
What's the weather like for you then? Because Don's quite interested listening to the fact that, and I've heard it as well, it's something that Chris Monk talked about when he was on Sun and Moon, is that we're going into an ice age.
Well, I'm in the tropics, just at the start of the tropics. And so it's been really rainy lately, but it's still hot. I'm just in shorts. But down south got completely different weather, and up north's got different weather. And I don't know, An iceberg. I don't know which way we're going.
Nothing's changed for you then?
Oh, it's just all erratic weather from year to year. And now that I know about all the technology we have, I don't know what a real cloud is anymore, but from a made one. They all look completely different to me now. So I watch these little black clouds floating around on their own. I don't know what's going on. And because I've a lot of memory loss, I can't remember. Did I used to see the moon in the daytime? I don't remember. I've no idea. So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I would say that I don't remember seeing it in the daytime, but that doesn't mean I wasn't looking for it, if you know what I mean, because in our minds we're told it comes at night. But then when I put the question to the chat room a few months ago about this, people in the chat room said that they did remember when they were younger seeing the moon in the day. But I don't remember seeing the moon in the day, but I just may not have been looking for it. And because, you know, the moon rules the night, then you're only going to look at it, see it at night time. It's only because there's flat earthers or whatever we like to call ourselves. We've woken up and we're looking for this now.
I've done tests on this, Karen, and you can physically see not the full moon, but you can see almost the full moon at 12 midday. And the only place you'll see the full moon plus 12 midday is above 70 degrees north or 71 degrees south. And it changes throughout the year. So you can see the full moon, but not at midday. You can see it after.
Right. You're not a full moon you're talking about.
Full moon, yeah, full moon. Most
right.
Yeah, I've never noticed before. I've never.
It's like tonight. The moon's out. It looks full, but it's 3 days before the full moon.
Yes.
The full moon's not till Sunday. It looks full, but it's not full.
Well, where I live here, we have more cloudy days than sunny days. So a lot of times I don't get to see this stuff. We have too much cloud cover all the time. Like today is raining, cloudy all day long.
Yeah, Don, I can't believe he sounds like he's living in England.
Well, up here by the lake, that's the way it is. It's. I think we have more cloudy days than sunny days here for sure, especially in the wintertime. This time of year is the absolute worst. We'll go for weeks and weeks. We'll go a month or more with no sunlight. Period. No sun at all.
Right.
I've done a test, Karen, on the full moon that will happen. And I can't remember the exact date, but it's about the 28th of not July, June, because July there's an eclipse. In July there will be an eclipse.
Right.
On the full moon in June, at midday, based on a location in Saudi Arabia, which was midday, and I drilled a hole through the earth to find out exactly where that would be, and it come out below Hawaii, down in that sea there. Is it the Pacific? Yeah, I think it is.
Right.
And the moon was 217 miles away, and I thought, how could you physically see a moon that's 217 miles away from the center of the ball Earth when it's full? How can the light reflect off it? And then I done a CAD drawing at the distance they tell us, and you can physically see it if I use those numbers. I know that's not what you want to hear. It's not what you want to hear, but that's what I heard, what I tested.
Well, there is something that came into my mind about like the moon and that. Like you never see any light bending or anything on the moon. The shadows would be different if it was a ball and all that. So it's definitely, honestly, well, I don't even know what it is. I don't even think it's definitely, I don't even think it's a planet, nothing. I don't even know what it is. It's just up there. Anyway.
This week I've been taking star trails looking south, and I get a central star pole thing looking south, which I don't think is supposed to happen either on a flat Earth or a round one. I'm not really sure, because I don't know a lot about the movements of stars. It's all new to me. But I just filmed one 2 nights ago, and I'm looking a little bit to the left of south, and there is this circular star hole. I'm just about to post it. I'm finishing it off now.
What, you think you found it?
No, there is one. And when I look
There
north,
is one.
there's 2 side by side when I look north. So I think there's 3,
Right.
at least 3 that I can see. So I haven't started doing the north ones yet. Because it's been so cloudy here with so much rain.
Look at what we're saying. We're all saying the same thing, aren't we? Don's saying it, you're saying it, we're saying it. We're always just covered in cloud. No wonder it's cold. There's no sun coming in.
Well, it's the rainy season here. So we have wet season and dry season. They don't have the 4 seasons of what down south has. It's just wet and dry season here. And so we expect it to be rainy because it's the wet season. And then it's dry during winter and sunny and nice. And that's when I'll get heaps of photos.
How hot does it get with you then, Don?
How hot?
Yeah.
Well, our hottest time of the year is basically July and August, and we'll break 90 degrees pretty consistently. The highest we've gone, I'd say 100 degrees. I can't remember the last time we had 100, but we definitely get into the 90s, but we also have really high humidity too, so it's totally miserable and unbearable at times. But that's not till July, August. This time of year, March, April, we always say April showers bring May flowers, and April is pretty much our most rainiest month of the year.
So you get it quite cold, and you also get cold winters, hot summers.
Yeah, this whole last week it was above freezing temperatures, which usually feels pretty good this time of year for us. But the wind's been coming out of the east, these nor'easterly winds they call them. They come from the east and go west, and it just brings in this bitter cold that goes straight to the bone. The last week was just unbearably cold, but yet it was above freezing out. It was just miserable cold because of the wind chill. The wind chill was dropping it clear down into the single digits below freezing.
And what part of America are you in again? I've forgotten.
I'm in Pennsylvania, right by the Great Lakes, Erie. Great Lakes Erie by Toronto, Canada, Niagara Falls.
Right. And it gets really hot there. Oh wow.
Yeah, summertime it'll get up into the 90s easy. 94, 95 degrees, sure. With high humidity.
Can I just also say we've been going now for nearly 3 hours. 3 hours is a good time to that's a good time on a hangout. Is there anything else anybody else would like to say?
No, I just want to say if no one's watched the Convex Earth documentary, get on it, because Globebusters, Jeranism, all those guys have mirrored it, and they say right on the video, mirror it. Just make sure you give credit to them. So everybody's shown it, and it's a good video. Everyone should check it out.
Yeah, it's top of my list to watch today.
Yeah, so I've got to watch that one as well. Skyfly, Brian, anything you'd like to add?
I actually watched it earlier today. Pete showed it on his channel. He played it in English and then he played it in Spanish because he went out to pick his son up and he just left the video running. Of course, it went on to the next video. So I watched it in English and Spanish. So I've seen it, I understand it, and I'm looking forward to what Globebusters will say about it on Sunday.
Well, I think he approves because he mirrored it. He mirrored it.
Has he mirrored it yet?
Yeah, he's already mirrored it. He'll probably be talking about it. He'll probably be talking about it Sunday on his show, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I always make a point to come in at 3 o'clock Eastern time for me, and I listen to Globebusters until they end.
I just got to say thank you, Karen. It's been a great show and great guests. And I know we've had a few problems with the audio and that, but it's been great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It's always a good time on Sun and Moon. Ha ha. Isn't it, guys? Isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Lev, do you want to say anything?
I remember being at school, 5-year-old, 1985, and a girl in assembly about 10:30 in daytime. She pointed out that how could you see the moon at this time of day? You know what I mean, and stuff like. So that's my proof that you could see a moon at that time. In that kind of sense, you were asking earlier that you couldn't remember seeing the moon out in daytime when you were younger, but I can when I were younger.
You do remember it?
Yeah, I saw it that day, kind of thing, and that's that because that girl, she was the same age as me. You know what I mean? She was only 5. For her to ask that question is like, I kind of think she must have picked up flat Earth by now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it must have been there. Didn't pay any attention to it.
I think, I don't know, don't shoot me down, everybody, but like the light night, I don't think it's the moon. I think it's the stars. I think the moon is whatever the moon is and whatever it's doing, but the light at night is the stars. And the water above, to me, is the water below is the sea and all that, and the water above is the clouds, because clouds have water in them. But everybody will probably shoot me down now.
Well,
it's just what
I think that's good. Because, like you've got air, fire, water, and earth.
Speak up a little bit, Trouble.
You've got air, fire, water, and earth. And so I was thinking, well, if the information, if it comes from stars, then it would travel through the air, and then it would become water. So like the information, goes through the air, then it materializes as water, and then what else is this? Then there's the earth, and so it hits the earth, and then the earth is a star, so it's just this big cycle around of information flowing. I don't know if that was vague and out of nowhere, but anyway.
I just wanted to say before I leave, I will be making a video very shortly saying that my micro aircraft runs on compressed air, but it will only be a joke. Just for the fun of it.
Right, okay. Brian, just say goodbye off air. When we go off air, we say goodbye to each other off air.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't keep you forever and anon because you've already been here a few hours.
I've been here 3 hours.
Is Patricia there?
She's
yeah, you've been on for a while, haven't you? Patricia, are you there?
She's there, but
I'm here.
She went on. Hello, my darling. Have you got anything to say? Because you've been very quiet today.
Hang on a sec.
She's eating.
Do you still love me, Patricia?
How can we not love you?
Yes, I do. Of course, I love everyone.
We should all love each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, you did shout me earlier, but it kept coming up page unresponsive, so I had to sit and wait. I'm like, Anyway, so I was like, it's like anything we don't know. We have to just guess, I suppose, and try and work these things out. But yeah, it's been a good night. I've really enjoyed listening to Don and Skyfly Drive and Trouble.
I'd like to say thank you, Karen. It went really well. We had no script. We just spoke the truth, and we went over many subjects. Didn't touch it on everything, but it went somewhere, didn't it? It was good. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
It was nice hearing you and Don talking, because obviously you knew what you were talking about, and so did Don. We just have to listen because we're not engineers or. Yeah, so it was good listening to you two talk to each other as well, because that's what this is about, isn't it? But it was good. Thank you, everybody. So thanks, Jay, who's not here. Thanks, Astral, who's not here. Who else is that? Is that the extra ones? And then, of course, Trouble, thank you. Skyfly, thank you. Patricia, thank you. levkungfu, thank you. And Don, thank you. And we're back tomorrow. So thank you, everybody in the chat room, mwah, and on the panel. Mwah. So yeah,
Don't
see you tomorrow. Bye,
Karen. People for people.
Oh yeah, people for people.life is going up and running. I made a little video. Didn't you see it, Brian?
Sorry, no, I'm not seeing
About people. That's okay. Anyway, it's up and running, and people are starting to make posts and obviously add each other. I think Mr. Thrive and Survive is going to make a little video about it as well, obviously to show people around the site properly. But of course, I had to do my little one for it. But yeah, people for people.life is going. Everybody sign up. It has no Facebook and YouTube laws. It's for the people to make communities. To freely go there and look information up. Anyway, is that enough?
Super smash.
Is that enough? And I made a little video about it. Anyway, thank you again. Good night to everybody, and see you tomorrow. Mwah.
Good night, everyone.
Love you all.
Bye, Patricia.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Truth.